there's times where it's just like, I couldn't have imagined a life without her or the kids.
Huh.
You know, like I sit back and I think about it and I'm just like, in my mind sometimes that old life didn't even exist. You know what I mean? Which obviously it did, but it's just like, it's just been, and maybe that's just been because we've been so busy too.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Audio Stew. Today's guest is Ryan Durham. Ryan is a fellow church member of my church here in Kearney at Calvary. And today we're going to be talking about life on the road. Ryan has been driving truck for over 20 years, and so we're just going to sit down and have a talk about, what that lifestyle is like, how it affects different relationships, and honestly, just have a good time. So I really hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, Kurt here, and we are back for another episode of Audio Stew, the delicious sound bites or whatever you want to call it. I don't have a tagline yet. We've got another guest today. It's not just me, although maybe one day it'll be just me. Today we have the Mr. Ryan. Can you introduce yourself, Ryan?
Ryan Durham.
Ryan Durham. He's right there on the other side of the table. My, Ryan, that is quite the beard you've got going.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we gotta get this out of the way,
right
at the start. So I contacted Ryan. I don't know, maybe at least 2 weeks ago, maybe even further back than that, about wanting to record a new podcast with him, and he's like, yeah, man, that'd be awesome, let's do it. Something like that. I don't remember exactly what you said. And come to find out, actually, this morning, that Ryan has had my number saved wrong in his phone. And
for the entire time that I have lived in Nebraska.
For the entire time. And he thought he was talking with some other guy from church about recording a podcast. So
yeah, that is true.
He's stuck with me, I guess, but we'll make it work, hopefully.
Yeah, there's worse company.
I would agree with you. But if you couldn't tell already, we are very well prepared here today. I don't really have an outline. This is kind of a new thing for me. I wrote down like one or two things just so I could remember stuff I wanted to talk about. But we're going to keep this mostly just us, talking. That's all this is. I don't honestly know a lot about you, Ryan. I know quite a bit, but not, we haven't really sat down and had a heart-to-heart before.
That's true.
So that's today. That's what we're doing. So we'll just jump right in. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Kind of, life story, where you're from, anything interesting like that. Maybe your favorite, I don't know, favorite thing from Taco Bell. Just what?
Nobody eats Taco Bell first. Let's please clarify that. Any place where the dumpster smells like the kitchen should not be eaten at. No offense to Taco Bell, and if you were trying to get a sponsorship there, I apologize. But
I might get a sponsorship from their competition.
Taco John's.
Yeah, Taco John's.
The potato Olays. Yeah. So, no, honestly, so I'm in my 40s.
Okay.
Happily married, obviously, to a woman who is better than me.
Well,
Randy,
that's a good
right?
start.
So,
yeah.
So we're here in Nebraska right now. Been here right at a year. Just serving at Calvary and just kind of getting experience with Lauren and Spencer on what it really. I've been in the pastoral internship with the church now for a couple of years.
Okay.
But I've been a truck driver my entire life. Okay. And so it's just kind of this interesting scheduling conflict every time we turn around.
Yeah.
Because with being an over-the-road driver, I just never really had set days off, no set time off. And so trying to get experience in ministry and growing in my leadership abilities and things like that, it's just been tough. And so about a year and a half ago, I guess if you were to really get into it, we went to the elders at our church and we were just like, hey, we love what we're doing here, but we can't afford to live in Denver no more. Really? I mean, and so they talked to us a little bit, and lo and behold, Spencer and Lauren needed some help here in Nebraska, and it was cheaper than Denver. And okay, let's go. And so 6 weeks later, literally 6 weeks later, we were signing the closing documents on a house. First time we've ever bought a house. Nice. And we were signing the closing documents on a house that we'd never seen. We had never. You
didn't even look at it?
We had never so much as even seen the front door.
No,
we didn't even drive by. We did not even drive by the house.
Okay.
So interesting. We had come to visit Kearney, and we went house shopping.
Yeah.
And seen a couple that we liked, couple that we wanted that we couldn't get. Long story short, we put offers in on one house and just couldn't come to terms with the seller. And so at this point, we're back in Denver. We didn't have the time off or the money to make a second trip to Kearney, and our lease was up on October the 1st.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like, we have to find a place, and we have to find a place now. And as you know, finding a rental in Kearney, or you may not know,
so expensive.
Well, not just that, but one that accepts pets.
Oh, yeah.
Is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And at the time, our daughter was still living with us. We still had our dog and 2 cats. So at either rate, our realtor called us and said, hey, there's this other house. It's technically on the market, but they're not allowed to show it for like another 3 weeks because there's a renter who's still living in the house.
Yeah.
When they leave, they're going to clean the house up and then start showing it. So just from what I've heard about the housing market here, that like the houses just go super quick.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, okay, and I asked the realtor, I said, what do you think about if we just put an offer on the house? And she's like, well, I don't know, like we haven't got to see it yet or anything. And I was like, yeah. I said, my wife would probably kill me anyway. Brandy was at work. So I was just like, you know what, like, we'll look at it and we'll talk about it and I'll call you back.
Yeah.
That afternoon, Brandy gets off work and she's out in the garage, and I said, hey, babe, we got to talk about this house. So I start telling her, and she looks at me, and Brandy is misanalytical. Like, I mean, there's always like somewhat, I guess, in a relationship that, you're a little bit opposite of each. Like, I am definitely the free spirit. Like,
oh, yeah.
Okay, like, cool, we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to go do it anyway. You know what I mean? And she's just like, well, wait a minute. Let's figure out we just had the measuring tape conversation.
Yeah, outside. So, yeah, that was funny.
So, she looks at me, and so out of the blue, so out of character, she says, so let's put an offer on the house.
Whoa.
And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Did you really just say that?
Who are you?
Where is my wife? And so she was like, no, I'm serious. Like, let's pray about it for a minute and just see.
Yeah.
And so we did. We sat down in our garage there in Denver, and we just prayed. And we were just like, Lord, if this is the house you want us to have, then you do what needs to be done. And so we didn't have the money for closing costs when we bought the house. And so what I did is I put together an offer. I sent it in, called my realtor, and I was like, hey, we're sending this offer. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, nobody has seen this house. And I was like, I get it. We know. And we figured out the closing would be right around $7,000 more than they were asking for the house.
Okay.
So we put an offer in for $7,000 over.
Yeah. And
said, hey, here's what we got. This is our best offer. Here it is. You pay closing. That's all we can do.
Okay.
10 hours later, they were like, we're down.
That's wild.
And
man.
Yeah, it was just completely crazy. And then just going through the home inspection process and everything after that, like there were some things it needed. It needed a new roof. It needed new carpet. Needed painted. Seller agreed to do it all, with the exception of some painting on the outside.
Yeah,
the house needed scraped and painted on the outside, and so Lauren and Micah came over.
Okay,
and I think we'd met Micah once, but they come over to the house, scraped it, painted the outside of it or whatever.
That's crazy.
We got to town that morning, and so fast forward a few weeks, and closing day of the house is the morning that we pulled into Kearney. in our U-Haul. Everything's in a U-Haul. Like, and I'm sitting at the gas station and waiting for Brandy to catch up. And because one of us drives faster than the other. Don't know which one that is. Well, but the realtor called me and was like, hey, we can go over to the house and do a walkthrough before we go to sign the closing papers. And I was like, okay. And Brandy gets there, and I told her, I said, hey, this is what the realtor said. Do you want to set up a time to go do that, or do we just want to go sign the papers? And we both agreed. Like, we haven't seen the house yet. In reality, everything we own is in a truck. We can't afford to live in Denver. And we don't have the money for, go live in a hotel room for 6, 7, 8 weeks. Like, how much could possibly be wrong with this house that we're not going to move into it now,
Yeah, you were kind of committed at that point.
We were completely committed, and we just decided that we had started the entire process as a walk of faith, and we just believed that God was going to put us in this house to have us use it while we were here. And so why go look at it before we sign the papers? Let's just go sign the papers. And so we were going to stop at Mike Spencer and Lauren's.
Yeah.
On the way to sign the closing papers, and the route I was going to take was going to take us by the house, and deliberately made sure that we went around the block. So we did not even see the front door. We didn't see the yard, nothing. Until papers were signed and we were unloading the truck. Yeah. It was crazy.
Good grief, Ryan.
And I suggest that no one ever do that. Ever. So many little surprises and things that, in reality, we were committed. We didn't have any other choices, but I think there were some things that it was just like, man, we probably would not have bought this house.
Not have done that. Yeah.
So.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a crazy story. And you said, okay, so I got several things I want to fill people in on and stuff. So let's go back a little bit. You said you're from, how long have you been here?
We've been here in Nebraska now for exactly a year.
Exactly a year.
Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. That's September 23rd.
Huh. So I bet I showed up to Calvary not too long after. I think I maybe visited once, and then I didn't start going until like the winter maybe. But
right.
Yeah. So okay. So for the audience who does not know, we're going to fill in a few things.
Fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks. Calvary is the church that both Ryan and I attend here in Kearney. It is essentially a family of churches spread across the Midwest. And you are originally from Calvary, Englewood, which is the original Calvary Church.
The mothership.
In Denver. Yeah, the mothership. And so Calvary Kearney was planted by Spencer and Lauren.
Right.
Which I'm going to actually have, hopefully, Spencer on here in a few weeks. So if you want to hear more about how Calvary Kearney was planted, tune in in a couple of weeks. Man, it's going to be crazy. And so Spencer, Lauren, you and Brandy, did anyone else come from Englewood?
When me and Brandy came? No. Now, the Schulenbergs, and I'm trying to remember their first two names, but they were here for a while leading worship.
Okay.
But that was before me and Brandy came.
Yeah.
And I know they've left and moved on, but he was going to seminary in Westminster.
Okay.
And I don't know if they came right when Spencer and Lauren came or if they came a few months afterwards. But I know for the most part it was Lauren and Spencer on their own. That was,
It's crazy.
That's tough.
All right, so that's how you got here.
That's how we got here.
Even before that, let's back up even a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah.
So, how did you wind up in Denver? Because I'm pretty sure you told me that you were from Texas.
I am from Texas.
Originally.
Yes. I was born by the grace of God in the Lone Star State. How did I end up in Denver? Now you're asking an interesting question.
Oh, no. For those of you who do not know, because we have not said this yet, eventually the topic today is, well, other than just, chatting and getting to know each other better, is about truck driving and life on the road. But we got time. We got lots of other things to figure out.
This relates to that somewhat, actually. First of all, as we will find is the case in most men's lives. You're either waiting on the Lord or you're waiting on a woman. And that's how I ended up in Denver.
Okay.
No, honestly, I was driving truck.
Okay.
So that's the thing. I was driving truck. Been single for a while.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine, I actually worked with and for him at one point, and my best friend in life was the best man at my wedding. I actually performed his wedding ceremony for him and his wife.
Okay.
And they were always giving me heck about dating.
Yeah.
Why aren't you seeing anybody? Well, look, I mean, I spend 6 to 8 weeks at a time on the road. Like, I'm not in any one place long enough to really form a relationship. I really don't know that many people to begin with. Like, it's a very isolated world. And it never stopped. And they wanted me, or she wanted me rather, my buddy's wife wanted me to try online dating.
Okay.
Which was not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to, especially trying to find anybody who's serious about a relationship, this and that.
It's pretty rare. This is a crazy story. My brother met his wife online, and it did work out for them.
Well,
but
see, there you go.
It's pretty wild.
Well, and I signed up for an online profile. Literally, the whole deal was this. I finally told him, I was like, look,
okay,
I'll do it. I'll sign up for this stupid thing. I'll do it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
In 2 weeks, I'm done. You get off my back. Okay, fine, whatever. And like that was it for me.
Yeah.
And within a couple of days of me being on there, I sent a message to Brandy.
No.
And honestly, did not even expect that she would so much as even respond.
Uh-huh.
And here we are, 5.5, 6 years later. Not even 6 years.
No way.
Yeah, just completely insane how well we meshed up and mashed up.
So is she from?
And she's from Denver originally. And so the route that I was working and driving at the time was, I didn't work for Coors, but I had an account that I ran for Coors. And so I would go into Denver and I would pick up empty cans and I would take those out to Virginia.
Okay.
And then in Virginia, I would drop the empty cans. I would pick up a load of beer, take that to a local distributor, deliver that, and then I would pick up a third trailer that just had empty kegs, plastic pallets, stuff like that, bring that back to Denver. So with that being my run, I was in Denver typically 2, sometimes 3 times a week.
Okay.
And with that being the case, when we were setting up this dating profile, that's where most of my time, as far as any one particular place, would have been. And so it just made sense for me to set up my dating profile with that zip code.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, where are you from? That's a good question.
And exactly. And that's one of the things Brandy asked me. So where do you live? And I'm like, in my truck. Like, I don't know.
Oh man.
Matter of fact, interesting story about that too. After talking to her for a couple of weeks and like really feeling like things are kind of going somewhere here, and this might actually be something. I asked her out, first date.
Okay.
Super nervous, super pumped, but confident too, right? This is gonna happen. Like, she's not gonna tell me no.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I go to the store. Like, I bought new shirts for this date, right? Like, here we go. She said no.
Oh no!
She flat shot me down completely. Like, not even though it wasn't even like a let me let you down easy type deal. She was just like, no. She was like, yeah. She's like, no, I'm a mom and I don't know you, and like, you sound cool and you seem, everything's great. I don't think we're gonna meet right now. And I was just like, oh. Okay.
Return the T-shirt to the store.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it was just like, yeah. So then you spend like the next, week to 10 days going, well, I don't know, did I misread everything here?
Yeah.
But I want to say it was maybe 2 weeks after that we actually met for the first time on our first real date. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So she said no, but then you kept after her for a little bit.
We did, and it was funny because she said no. And that was her biggest thing, was just,
yeah,
you seem great, this seems great, but we don't know each other. I mean, she is a single woman in Denver. Like,
Yeah.
you read all the horror stories you want,
Yeah, yeah.
And so I get her hesitation. But that night, actually, it was funny. It was, I guess, for whatever reason, I had this weird sense of confidence that I don't normally have. And so I was like, okay, well, fine. If you're not going to go on an actual date with me, then we're just going to sit on the phone and have a pretend one. And she was like, what? And at this point, literally, we'd never even so much as spoke on the phone. Like, it's all text message.
Yeah.
And so somehow or other, by the end of the evening, she had actually called me, and so we're actually talking on the phone for the first time. And after we got off the phone, it was like this little completely stupid, like virtual date type thing, kind of goofing off, but it was actually just kind of fun. And we just kind of, we still laugh, obviously, and make jokes about it today. I'm just like, well, since you won't go on a real date with me, what if I just showed up at your mom's house and I had, a bunch of flowers? She's like, oh, that'd be nice. And I was like, well, they're not for you. They're for your mom. And it was just like random statements like that the rest of the night, And so, I don't know. It just worked out. And then 2 weeks later, she actually was going to move up into the mountains and stay with her brother for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And had hardly no cell service up there and everything. And so I was like, okay, this sounded great, but it's kind of,
it's not going to happen.
I actually kind of felt like she was ghosting me.
Okay.
Because she's like, oh, I'm going up into the mountains to stay at my brother's house. And reception's kind of spot. I'm like, okay, I got you.
I can
whatever.
see that.
But she was up there for a little bit and then decided that it wasn't going to work for her and the kids. And so she came back into Denver and she's calling me and texting me. And I'm just like, wait.
I thought you were ghosting me.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is going somewhere. And so, with all of that said, as we started, getting serious and we started looking for a home church together. And I've always been part of smaller churches.
Okay.
Never wanted to be part of a big church. For a lot of different reasons. But so we kind of bounced around just trying to find the right fit. And then one day, I can't remember exactly how we heard about Calvary. It was somebody she knew or something that had suggested it. And so we went and sat through the first service that we went up there on, and everything seemed really good. And it was a bigger church, but the congregation wasn't really that big, at least on the Sunday we were there. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, okay, this would be doable. And I liked the preaching. And I don't know if you've ever gone and listened to any of Mark Halleck's sermons or anything, but
I have not. I think Spencer's talked about them, but
it was good. I liked it and kind of fit kind of where I felt like I was at theologically. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this would be a good fit. And then the very next week was actually like their fall festival for like Halloween and all that type of stuff. And so we showed up for that and just had a blast. Absolutely had a blast. And just got to meet a lot of the people from the church. And it immediately felt like home. It immediately felt like home. Yeah. And so we just kind of settled in. And I knew that I was feeling called. Didn't really know a lot about replanting and revitalization of churches. I mean, the two main things that I knew about was basically you go into a church, you get hired as a pastor, and you go into a church that's pre-existing, or you go and plant a new church. And those are really the only two paths that I was even aware of. And so I wasn't really sure, trying to figure out seminary, how does this work? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And so I started talking about that with some of the elders and people that we were in community group with. And they were just like, well, we got this entire cohort and, this is what and they start kind of filling me in on Calvary's story of revitalizing and replanting and just kind of where their heart and their mission as a church is. And I'm just like, okay, well, this sounds good.
Yeah, like these people are for real.
Well, that's the thing. I'm still on the road. So I'm only at church once every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it still sounds good in my head, but I'm not seeing it.
Oh,
every week,
okay.
Right? I'm just getting conversations here and there.
Okay.
And so, ironically, we're here with Spencer and Lauren right now. I never met Spencer and Lauren a day in my life.
Really?
But Brandy used to watch Juliet in the nursery in Denver.
Yeah.
And so they weren't close, but she knew them.
Yeah.
But ironically for me, one of those Sundays that I was home, and like I said, I'm just wrestling with God, like, okay, seminary, do I not go to seminary? What's this call look like? Mm-hmm. And then even just wrestling with, are we at the right church? Because in my mind, it was like every church says they want to raise up leaders and send leaders out.
Yeah.
But not every church is doing that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, are we at the right place? Are we not at the right place? You know, what? Really just praying, Lord, what do you want me to do? That Sunday was the same Sunday that they had Lauren and they called Lauren and Spencer up and just kind of laid hands on them and prayed over them. And it really just gave me this huge sense of peace because it was like, okay, you're exactly where you need to be right now.
So that's the moment.
Yeah, it really was. It was, I mean, Calvary had felt like home to begin with, but then as far as like missionally, I still wasn't sure.
Okay.
That was the moment where it was like, okay, this church is not just saying they're going to send people out. They're in the business of sending people out. And I just, from that moment, it was just a calm, peaceful feeling. Then it was just, okay, what does this look like? Which, as a truck driver, it has been ugly. Mm-hmm. It's been ugly just because you can't be anywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you set up to be part of an internship that meets every Wednesday, and then
you're on the
work
road.
tells you, tells you, hey, we can get you Wednesdays off, but then they get you out of 12 weeks, they get you 2. Yeah, you know, and it's like, well, okay, well, I told the church I'd do this, but you know, here's what happened. You know, so
dude, that's so crazy, man. Like, I'm learning so much. All the stuff I didn't know. Well, I'd heard about, but like didn't know like all the details.
Right? Yeah, little pieces. Like yeah.
Oh, where to go from here? So we finally got you here in Nebraska. Okay, so you're on the road. That's how you wound up in Denver. Met your girl out in Denver, and now how long you been married again?
We got married. Well, which time?
Oh, okay.
We've got 2 weddings.
Okay.
The official wedding date is actually Leap Day of 2016, February 29th of 2016.
You got married on a leap day?
We did. And we did that completely intentionally. And
That's so funny.
And it was a secret wedding.
Okay.
It was literally a secret wedding. The only people that were there was the pastor of the church.
Yeah.
Obviously, both of us. Her mom was there.
Yeah.
And 2 witnesses, both of which worked for Calvary. And it was like the office secretary and like one other intern. And that was it. Like her dad didn't know. Our kids didn't know.
What?
Nobody knew.
Okay.
And that was really, for us, that wedding ceremony, it was more just about trying to honor the Lord.
Yeah.
Financially, it was not feasible for us to maintain 2 households.
Yeah.
And even with me being on the road, it just wasn't right for us to be living together. Even if I was only going to be there 2, 3, 4 days, every 4 to 6 weeks, like it was just not the right thing for us to do. And so we had already planned on having this big ceremony in August, and it was just like, we can't wait till August to move in together and to do all of this stuff. So hence, we have the secret wedding ceremony.
On a leap day.
So
your anniversary is only comes every 4 years.
Matter of fact, this last February was our first official anniversary. Yeah.
What? That's so funny.
And that was the thing, is we didn't want to tell anybody until the first year rolled around. And so, like, Brandy, on Leap Day this year, she sent out a bunch of pictures of us from the church that day. With a picture of our wedding certificate or whatever. Yeah. And the kids are like, why are you sending us this? Like, I don't get it. And she's like, look at the date. You know, they're like, wait, what? Like, no, you guys didn't get married till August, you know? And she's like, well,
actually, we were married. Yeah.
So then, of course, you know, all the comments, your entire relationship is built on a lie. Well, yeah, kind of. So.
Did you say, okay, I'm sorry, I missed this. Was it 2016? 2016.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. We met, like, our crazy, and once again, so I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things, Kurt, that I have done in my life seemingly continue to do. So I think it's a pattern that I would suggest nobody ever do. Like, it's worked out. Like, God's had his hand on it. So, like, I mean, obviously, but like, we literally had our very first conversation, even text message, like, hi, my name is Ryan, January 2nd of 2015.
Okay. See, that was my first,
January
the next question
2nd.
was how long?
Yeah, January 2nd. 8 weeks later, we're married.
What?
Well, no.
Wait, hold up. I was going to say.
It's almost a year.
I was going to say, wait, hold up. You said 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the time the first message goes out.
I don't know why I said 8 weeks.
I don't know. I was like.
In my head.
Math is hard. We've already established this. So, from 2015 to 2016, just over a year from the first time you ever make contact with this person, you're married.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I knew I was going to marry her before our first date.
Really?
Before our actual first date.
You felt...
I knew it. I didn't just feel it. I knew it.
You knew it. Wow. Okay. Huh.
It's one of those, like, I can't really explain it all that well. What I can say is I used to train, which is something we can talk about in a minute too. Like, I train drivers.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting at dinner with the student that I had at the time. Mm-hmm. And we're talking, and Brandy and I are texting back and forth a little bit. And she had sent me a message, and I kind of looked at it, and to be completely honest, kind of blew it off and just kind of threw the phone off to the side and continued my conversation. And it was literally like I felt horrible, number one, for just blowing her off. Huh. Like, because that's really what I felt like I was doing, and not really that I intended to, but it was just like, eh. But literally, like, it's almost like I could hear God. And I'm not hearing voices, okay? But it was almost like I could feel God saying to me, like, hey, pay attention.
Huh.
And it was like, I just reached down, and I picked up my phone, and it started kind of just rereading the last little bit of our conversation again, and thinking about it a little bit more, and I was like, okay, like, maybe there's a little bit more here than I thought there was. And by the end of that night, I knew I was going to marry that woman.
Well,
granted, a lot of it, I think, at that point is still just like, I think this might be going there.
Yeah.
Once we actually had our first date, I was in town for 3 days that weekend, and I knew there was not a doubt in my mind. Huh. Like, I knew. I just knew.
Do you know, have you talked with her about it? Do you know if that's how she was feeling towards it? Or?
Yeah, she thought I was a creeper, and she thought she was being catfished, which I had never even heard the term catfish before. Yeah, like, she was like, are you catfishing me? And I was like, no, but I like fishing. You want to go? Like, I had no idea what she was talking about. Like, yeah, she was not... She had a lot of emotion and a lot of feelings, but she was a lot more and she's like this in life anyway. Like, she was just a lot more cautious than I was, because I'm just like, okay, well, whatever, let's go
for it. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously she did, at least somewhat, because here we are.
Yeah, you're here now.
So,
this is a personal question, but so had you and Brandy both been previously married, or
I had been.
You had been.
Yeah,
okay.
And Brandy had been too.
Both.
That's okay. Yeah. So Brandy has actually been married twice.
Okay.
Well, 3 times now.
Yeah.
Unless you count both of ours, and then she's been married 4 times.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah. Maybe we don't want to put that on there. But yeah, no. So yeah, we've both been through marriage and divorce, and that really, actually, I think part of that too leads even to our story with our walk with the Lord.
Yeah.
I wasn't saved. She kind of knew the Lord, but really wasn't walking with the Lord. You know what I mean? Like, just so much of our story that ties into that. But yeah, my oldest son, who's in the Navy, came to live with us. But out of our 6 kids in that picture, he's mine, and the rest are hers from a previous marriage. And so, yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's where the younger kids are staying with their dad now.
Okay.
Because when we moved here, he was also leaving Colorado and moving to Georgia, and made a bunch of promises and come stay with dad. And so that's why, like, literally us moving here the last year, I think, has probably been the hardest transition of our lives for her personally, probably ever. And it's because our entire family dynamic changed.
Yeah.
We went from that every day of just, house full of kids and this and that to nobody. In a completely empty house all of a sudden. We were like, whoa. But yeah, both of us married and passed. And obviously neither one of us should have been, but like I said, that was back before we were saved. And really just watching how God's worked through all of that has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really related earlier when not personally related, but that kind of hit something in my head where I was like, I understand where Brandy's coming from a lot as far as I'm a single mom in Colorado and there's this random guy. I got kids. He's on the road. What is this?
Yeah. Exactly.
I really, and so to go through that, to figure out this guy is he's legit and stuff. Man,
well,
that's just a wild story.
And to add a whole nother layer to that, apparently there was some guy that she had talked to on this dating website before me, and they were just talking, and she had sent a message one day. She was in an area of town that she wasn't familiar with, and so she was like, "Hey, I'm over in this area of town. Do you know of any places to eat that are close by?" "Well, yeah, there's a McDonald's on this corner or whatever." "Oh, okay, great." So her and the kids stop there so she can feed the kids, and this guy comes walking in. Oh. And she's like, "Whoa," and he's, she's like, "Are you so-and-so?" And he's like, "Well, actually, no, my real name is Ryan."
What?
Yes, I swear. And, proceeds to tell her that his real name is Ryan and that he hadn't told her who he really was because he had to protect himself.
What?
And she's like, "Well, I'm sitting here with my kids right now, and you just completely randomly walked up to me in the middle of nowhere, and I'm not feeling so safe. And you lied to me about who you are." And so,
no.
So there's
the next guy named Ryan who comes along.
Exactly. So the next, so that's exactly it. So then I'm start talking to her, and it's like, "Well, hey, this is Ryan," and she's like, "Whoa,
wait a second.
Is this him trying to just be whatever?" So. Yeah, there was that whole added dynamic. Man. I still catch heck from the kids sometimes too. They're just like, "Yeah, you were that creepy guy talking to my mom before." I was like, "No, I wasn't."
Have you guys meshed all right then, as far as together now, your kids and stuff?
None of those kids have ever heard me say anything like stepkid, this, that, whatever. I love them kids.
Okay.
With all of my heart. And we have. Obviously, we bump heads sometimes. But anytime you have children and adults, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
As far as just meshing and cohesing as a family, I think, obviously, when there are problems, maybe they seem a little bit bigger and maybe they get blown out of proportion sometimes a little bit more because of the step family dynamic and the blended family thing. I think some things end up looking bigger and some things are definitely different. There's some things where it's just okay, I may feel or think this particular way, and Brandy and I will have a conversation about it. But when it comes down to it, at least in certain situations, the best thing I can do is kind of just take my hands off and be like, "Okay, you got to handle this," because coming from me, sometimes it's just not. It's going to make it worse. Rather, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire sometimes.
Yeah.
The tough part about that is when there is something pretty major going on, and I'll be looking at the situation, and it's like, okay, if I try to intervene here, that's what I'm doing. I'm pouring gasoline on this fire.
But there's still...
Well, to the outside world,
it
looks like, "Oh, why aren't you doing something?" You're the husband, you're the father. Why, why aren't you doing something? Because they're looking at it, from outside, going, "Well, your house is burning down."
Yeah.
What they don't understand is, well, okay, there's a little smoke there, but if I walk in the house, it's C4 dynamite. my wife's got this under control, and I think it was a hard adjustment for me to learn to do that because I'm a lot more authoritative than necessarily Brandy is. But so trying to figure out how to parent well in this weird situation,
weird dynamic,
and I say weird situation. I mean, it's probably more normal now.
It is a fairly common thing. I mean, I don't think meeting some guy truck driver online and add in the rest of it. It's pretty unique,
right? But, I mean, just as far as step families and things go, you know, I mean, they're pretty common, but it's still every one of those situations is a little bit different too, you know. So. Yeah, as far as a family wise, I mean, absolutely. I mean,
that's awesome.
Brendan. Matter of fact, I think the kids are planning. Brendan's in the Navy in Charleston right now, finishing up new school, and lives basically 4 hours away from the other kids. And so, not Josh. So Josh, who's standing next to Brendan in that picture, which this makes great radio. Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, Ryan is currently pointing at pictures on his wall, just so you guys know.
Josh is living in Denver. He actually moved here with us.
Okay.
But decided after just about 2 months that he was born in the city and he couldn't take not being in the city.
Yeah.
So anyway, he went back, and then the little bitty blonde that's standing in the middle of the picture, she's actually in basic at the Navy or at Fort Sill right now for the Army.
Okay.
Just got out of surgery, actually, fractured her hip, and is looking at 4 months of recovery before they'll let her start training again. But anyway,
I remember
the younger three are in Georgia, but they live about 4 hours away. The whole point of all that is they live about 4 hours away from where Brendan's at. And they've been actually talking on the phone lately about making plans to kind of meet each other halfway and kind of hang out a little bit. So
be interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, as far as meshing and becoming a family, absolutely. I mean, and it's weird because there's times, I mean, here we are, it's 2020, right? So it's been 5 years, almost 6 years. And there's times where it's just like, I couldn't have imagined a life without her or the kids. You know, like I sit back and I think about it, and I'm just like, in my mind sometimes that old life didn't even exist. You know what I mean? Which obviously it did, but it's just like, it's just been, and maybe that's just been because we've been so busy too that, I don't know. Can't really explain that.
We decided to leave the window open, and somebody's car horn is going off.
But it doesn't look like it's being stolen, so that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Nice.
Oh, goodness.
Dude, this is great. I'm so glad that, because I like I said, this is what happens when you don't plan things out, is you can just have conversation go, which I do, especially if people are like on a time crunch and stuff. It's nice to be like, all right, we got an hour, we're going to do this, this, and this, and be done. But just be able to like chat and stuff is it's so nice.
I'm enjoying it.
So how did we'll move on a little bit from family dynamics and your
I like how we're going
through crazy
life. I like how we're going through like my life story backwards.
Yeah, I know. We might even go further back. I don't even know, but truck driving. Yeah. How did you get into that? Because you said you've also had a strong desire to do some pastoral stuff. Yeah. So I mean, what got you onto that path of life?
That actually goes back to really more of my childhood. So
you gotta keep backing up. We're gonna get even younger.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and really the thing is I kind of grew up in and around trucks. Okay. That's really what it boils down to. To the point where Wichita Falls, which is one of the towns that I grew up in, there's a little truck stop there called the Jolly Truck Stop.
Okay.
And at one point, from the time that place is opened to today, there's been a female from my family working inside that truck stop. Huh. And at one point, my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother, all three worked there at the same time.
Really?
And so there were a lot of times where somebody would pick me up from school on their way to the truck stop, and they would drop me off at the truck stop, take me into the truck stop with them, me and my cousin or whatever, and we would hang out in the truck stop until my aunt or my grandmother or my mom got off work, and then they would take us home. Like we've carved our names in the booth at the truck stop.
Yeah. All that fun stuff.
Drivers would give us $20 to go out and polish their fuel tanks or their bumpers or whatever. And so there was always that, and just, truckers were always nice, and truckers were always this, and the trucks looked cool. And and then I had an uncle who lived in La Habana, Colorado, and he drove truck. And so occasionally we'd go on the, he'd take me on the road with him in the summer for a little bit here and there. And I just fell in love with trucks, honestly, and just the lifestyle of just, hey, I work for myself, and in your mind, you're like, oh, I set my own hours, and I do this, like, this would be great, not so much. But that was kind of where it was. And then going into high school, to be honest with you, and life was really weird for me at that point, well, not really in high school, but I was kind of like one of those guys that tried to do everything. Okay. So I was on the varsity football team. I was in the marching band. Literally, I'd take my shoulder pads off and march in the halftime show, and then
put them back on. Yeah,
I was in the theater. I was in everything, and I actually had a couple of scouts looking at me for college ball and all of this stuff. Yeah, and blew up my knee.
Yeah.
And so, everybody feel okay. So then after
everyone, we all have a moment of silence.
Where's the sound effects here?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I got one. Oh, that's my laugh track. Oh, man.
Right. But yeah, I blew out my knee. Spent that summer rehabbing. Got a couple of steroid injections to my knee to strengthen it through the physical therapist. And I don't want to go too far into this story just because it takes forever to tell.
That's all right.
But what I will say is this: I can tell you when it happened. Literally, I can tell you when it happened. But I ended up popping holes in my heart.
What?
And didn't know that that's what it was, because up to that moment in my life, I had never even so much as had a cold.
Yeah.
And so I literally started thinking that's what was wrong. I was like, I got the
cold.
Flu. I got a flu, something like that. Of course, we didn't know about COVID, back then. This was 20 years ago. And so that was wrong. But that's just kind of what I thought. Yeah. And so just kind of went through feeling lethargic. Anyway, I ended up flatlining. On the football field, opening kickoff opening kickoff our first game of the year, and I'm feeling pretty pumped up. I rehabbed from this knee thing. I can still get my scholarships. I'm good, and I'm going down the field, and I'm cut my pads off of me flatline.
No.
And so end up going through that whole long mess. I was in the hospital for months and months and months. And so did heart surgery on me then, and part of the issue with that was I was also signed up to go delayed enlisted in the Marines.
Okay.
That was kind of really my life's ambition. Okay, if I don't get a full ride scholarship,
it's not football.
If I don't get a full ride scholarship to a really good university, I'm just going to go in the Marines.
Okay.
And
so you first two options,
right? Because literally, the recruiter walked into my hospital room. Hey, how you doing, son? I'm doing okay. Shook my hand.
Yeah.
Said it was nice to know you. Turned around and walked out the door.
Okay.
Wait. Wait. And
no, I'll be good.
The military was completely not an option. I did fight for several years to get a waiver to get in the military. That just never panned itself out. And so with that, it's okay, well, what are you going to do with your life now?
Yeah.
Driving truck just made sense. It just made sense. It's kind of what I had always been around. I didn't really know a ton as far as mechanical stuff and this and that, but it just fit. And so that's kind of where I landed. And
how long you been doing that now then for?
I've been driving truck almost 22 years now.
22 years.
Yeah, off and on.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of times where I've been okay, I'm sick of this. I got to try something,
Nothing
and that's the one thing about
else.
driving truck is it gets in your blood, man.
Huh.
It does. It gets in your blood, and for a ton of different reasons, it gets to the point where there's almost nothing else you can do. You either sometimes it's because you don't have any other job skills. Because you spent so many years driving truck that you didn't develop, this or that or whatever. And so it's just like, oh, well. But yeah, I mean, everybody I'd ever talked to, they had a decent life, made a decent living. Their kids were happy. Their wife was happy. Huh. Like, okay, like this would be silly, for me not to do it. Let me do that. In my mind, I was just going to go to work for my uncle, and like everything was going to be hunky dory. And then that's when you start finding out all the red tape, and well, the insurance isn't going to cover you because you're not 23, and so you got to do this instead, and go to this school, and it's going to cost you $5,000, and it's like, oh, okay, well,
it's the logistics start.
Yeah. They're like, well, the school costs $5,000, but the company will pay for your school if you work for us for 2 years. Oh, that's great. For 2 years, we're going to pay you 25 cents a mile, which is basically indentured servitude. Like, you are just, they own you, and so it's a very tough industry to get started in.
Yeah.
Just because financially you struggle so much on the front end. If you can stick through those hard times, stick through those tough times, then it starts to pay itself off once you got some experience. Mm-hmm. And it's been a blessing. But yeah, you start just working through all of that, and then I was unsaved.
Yeah.
At the time, and like there are no rules. You know what I mean? Like you just run until you can't run no more. And to be honest with you, like all the guys that taught me how to drive were all old school truckers. Yeah. And so they taught me all the old school. This is how you do this, and this is how you do that, and this is how you get around every scale house in the country. And it was like, oh okay, and almost not even to the point of like, hey, this is how you bend the rules. It was more like, this is the only way to do this job. Huh. And if you don't do this job this way, you're doing something wrong. So, like, for example, I remember a buddy of mine walked into a company and applied.
Yeah.
And for general purposes, right? I mean, depending on the truck you're in and this and that, like this could always fluctuate. But in general, if you're running quote unquote legal, a single driver can normally turn somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 miles in a week.
So that's saying how much they can do in their route.
Right.
In 1 week.
So on 1 week, they could drive somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 miles.
Okay.
In a legit way.
Yeah.
This guy walks into a company just outside of Memphis, turns in his application. The guy looks at his application, looks at him, says, can you drive 5,000 miles a week? Because if not, turns around, points to another set of applications that are on his desk, and he says, I got 15 guys that will replace you tomorrow. What? That's just the way this industry was. Huh. That's just the way it was. Like, nobody cared about what the laws were. Nobody cared about what the, logbooks or DOT or whether you were overweight. There's and honestly, as much focus as there is on safety in the industry today, there's still only two things anybody cares about. Will you get there in one piece? And not you necessarily. They don't care.
Your stuff.
Will your stuff get there in one piece, and will it get there on time? That's it. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Huh. What happens between point A and point B, we don't care. All we're saying is that we paid for it to be from point A to point B, get there in one piece, and be there by 10 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever it happens to be. And so it can be a dark world out there, man.
That's what I feel like truck driving is honestly probably one of the, I don't know how to say this, like least, for me personally, least knowledgeable. Like I don't know a clue about truck driving. Truck drivers to me is I'm going down the interstate, I see some guy with the, hauling his whatever, and I like, maybe when I'm a kid, I'll try and, get him to honk his horn. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I know.
Yeah, buddy.
How many times do you think you've done that in your life? Honk the horn for some kid?
Oh, man.
Is it in the thousands, you think?
It's easily in the thousands. Easily. Yeah. Listen, there's not a kid I won't do it for.
Yeah.
There's not a kid. I don't care. City, not city. I don't care where we're at. Yeah, I'm gonna blow the horn. And I do it. I actually got in trouble for this a while back. For them, I won't do it for some adults.
Okay.
I don't know.
Like, it's not the same thing, you know?
One, it's not the same thing. And there will be situations where it's like you can tell they're doing it for a kid, or sometimes you just kind of like read the smile on their faces, and maybe they're doing it for a memory, or you know, like. But then other times it's like, I'm drunk and I'm high and I'm throwing my arms. Oh, look, there's the truck driver. You know, it's like, you know what? Get out of my way. I don't have time. And I actually get in trouble for some of that. Brandy's like, oh, so now you pick who and choose you blow the horn for? No. Like, well, yes, actually, I guess I do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll blow up more often than not. Let's put it that way. Yeah, and I would say it's in the thousands. And I'll tell you something else, if anybody's wondering. Guys love doing it.
Yeah.
Guys love doing it.
You're like local celebrity every time you drive.
I look for a little kid sometimes when I'm driving. You know, like, you know, just kind of look in. I had one a while back, actually. This was kind of cool story. And it's little things, right? Like, little things make your day. But cars coming up beside me, and you can see the little kid, and the kid's just glued to the window, right? Just the cheesiest grin on his face. And his dad, the kid's not doing it. So his dad's pumping his arm or whatever. All right, so I reached up and I blow the horn. And when I did, this little kid, man, throws his head back and just start. You could just. We're 2 car lengths away, and you can hear the kid laughing. Like, he's just, you know, it brought me so much joy just to see how happy that kid would get. But here's what was really cool: like, the dad was getting a kick out of it too, and so Dad would slow down.
Yeah.
Until I caught back up to him.
Oh no! Dude,
and he'd do it. We'd do it again, and the kid would just. And he's like 2 or 3. You know, I mean, like, the kid would just lose his mind laughing, and Dad would pull off a little bit. He'd drive back again. I mean, we probably went on like 10, 15 miles like that.
That's crazy.
It was great. It was so fun.
Oh man!
You know, or I've seen little kids like driving through the countryside, especially more so I think than in the city. But like. Kid's riding his bike, and he sees the truck coming, and like literally like jumps off his bike as quick as he can, you know. And it's like, okay, cool, you know. Yeah, your moment in the sun.
Moment in the sun. So what's the? So I remember that, like, you know, those are some of my favorite memories of doing that as a kid. And you said even yourself earlier that, you know, you growing up at like the truck stop and stuff. You said truckers are like the friendliest people ever.
Oh yeah.
Know? So what's the balance then between this? Are truckers like really the friendly people, or because then you get into the you said the dark business side of you know, don't always play by the rules.
Right.
So what's the real scoop?
What's the real deal? Here's the truth.
Okay.
Right. Here's the truth. Some of the absolute best people that I've ever met in my life have been truck drivers.
Yeah.
Some of the absolute most vile, evil, hateful people I've ever met in my life have been truck drivers.
Also truck drivers.
You know, I don't think that they're much different than any other section of society. In respects, I mean, like, some of the things that they do that maybe somebody would consider wrong are going to be specific to the trucking industry, right? But I think that in general, I think that's one of the things that I've actually taken a lot of time over the last couple of years and thought about. Like, I can look at the trucking community and it's like, okay, I see this good, bad, neutral, which I don't think there's a lot of neutral. But you can take in, and it's almost like looking at a pie chart of the rest of the population. You know, I mean, it's like a concentrated level, because I've got, you know, 4, 5, 6 times a day where I'm in a parking lot with 200, 300, 400 other drivers, and so I'm just seeing it up close and personal.
Yeah.
But you spread that out across the rest of the population, and I think it's a pretty even, you know, at least sampling, if that makes sense. As far as like because there is a dark side of trucking, absolutely. As far as like what makes that happen, you know, there's a lot of answers to that question, right? Obviously, just sin being at the heart of it. But then you take and you throw in your average truck driver, and I think this is what people don't realize. Your average truck driver is on the road from anywhere between 3 and 8 weeks at a time without going home. And then he goes home and he's there for, if he has a home to go to, he's there for a day and a half, maybe 2 days. If he's there any longer than that, if he's a company driver, the company's telling him he's not allowed to take any more time off. And if he's an owner-operator, he can't afford to take any more time off because if the truck's not moving, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And so, with that said, it's very easy to start feeling like you as an individual mean nothing. It's just real easy for that to sink into your mind. Most of your companies don't even call you by name. You're driver number 314692. And as soon as you call in, you're like, hey, this is Ryan. Oh, what's your number?
Yeah.
Oh, what's your number? I mean, that's just the way you're treated constantly. Shippers and receivers are very quick to tell you that you're not welcome there. You're not appreciated there. To the point where a lot of places won't even let you use their bathrooms.
Wow.
And that's a pretty consistent, normal thing. But then they'll call the law if you went outside, but it's like, I mean, just, so it's very easy to all of a sudden just feel secluded and segregated that way. Loneliness, depression, then you throw in the financial issues, and then marital problems, problems with your children, because very few, if any, marriages can really stay strong and healthy for extended periods of time with that sort of separation and stress. It's almost impossible.
Yeah,
and so
this is right along the stuff I was like hoping to get into, because
and that's the thing. I mean, like, that's it's this perfect storm of, like I just said, loneliness, depression. You're not really treated like you matter one way or the other. The only thing that matters is show up, Now, I will say this. Some of the bigger companies, they're going to force you to run according to your logbook and force you to run to the law. But in the process of doing that, what they're going to do is they're going to cut your miles. They're going to cut your loads. They'll even take loads away from you. Yeah. Like, okay, well, you got this halfway here, but this other driver's going to meet you in the parking lot, because they're still going to get paid for running that full load. You're just not going to get paid for running that full load. You see what I'm saying? And so it's just very easy to, like I said, number one, start feeling like you don't matter. And then when you're already in that state, right, then that's when some of the darkest stuff starts happening. You just had a fight with your wife.
Yeah.
You're half broke. You haven't been home in 6 weeks. You don't feel like anybody cares about you. If you died tomorrow, would anybody even know it? Because I can't tell you how many truck drivers have died in trucks and not been found for a week or more. Wow. And then all of a sudden somebody knocks on the door.
Yeah.
Want some company? Sure, I want to feel better for a minute. You know what I mean? And then it's, off to the races.
Yeah.
You haven't slept in 2 days because you sat at this customer getting loaded for 8 hours. And then by the time they got you loaded, you drove a little bit, then you stopped, maybe tried to grab a shower, finished driving the rest of your shift. Now the sun's coming up, you're getting unloaded. Well, by the time you get unloaded, you got to be over to the other side of town getting reloaded. And the next thing you know, some of this is more old school stuff, but it's still happening out here.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, some guy's sitting there sliding you a pill.
Yeah.
Well, I ain't tired no more. All right, here we go. And you just, it's very easy to justify any of that stuff, just like it's easy to justify any of our other sins, And I'm not trying to justify it in any way. What I can say is I can look at this population and the life that they, because it's not a job. It really is a completely different lifestyle. It really is. And when you look at the way that truckers have to live their lives and the way they're treated by everybody outside of the truck, it's very easy to see how they fall into a lot of the traps that they do. Mm-hmm. It just is. And it's heartbreaking, honestly. For me, from a spiritual and godly perspective, and from a gospel related perspective, like, not only does it break my heart, but there's times that it just flat out makes me mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's guys that are out there that are trying to do the right thing. You know that there are guys that are out there that are trying to take the gospel to drivers. You know it's, but then, and I guess I'm being kind of random, right? But I just want to go back just a little bit, like, just to kind of highlight a point, I guess, right? Like, we talked about the drugs, we talked about the girls.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I said something along the lines of, like, drivers are treated like nobody even cares what who they are, whether they exist. And you get that from the customer side, which I guess even almost anybody would kind of expect a little bit, like, oh, well, whatever, you're just another truck driver.
Yeah.
But, bro, that attitude goes all the way down to and includes the local church.
Really?
I cannot tell you how many times that I personally have been met in the parking lot of a church that I was on my way into. Mm-hmm. Literally found a church. Wow, okay, I'm actually going to be able to go to a worship service. I haven't been able to go to a worship service in a month. This is going to be great. I'm pumped. I get out the truck. I make it halfway across the parking lot, and I'm met across the parking lot saying, I'm not welcome here. I need to get in my truck and leave.
Wow.
I cannot tell you how often that's happened.
That's crazy.
I can't tell you how many churches have signs in their parking lot that says, no truckers welcome here. It's just like, are you kidding me? So the world has completely rejected me.
Not then having...
And now...
Yeah.
Especially as a non-believer,
yeah,
you finally have wrestled up enough courage to maybe go to church and to seek after God, because maybe there's an answer there. I don't know. I need to try something.
Yeah.
How many weeks did it take that non-believer to work up the courage to walk into a church, period? And if you're telling me no, how many of them are being told to go away?
Yeah.
And so I just think, how many men and women across this country will never even so much as try or think about trying to go to another church again because of an experience like that? The one place where they should have been accepted under any conditions.
Still rejected.
Yeah. And so it just feeds. It just feeds that.
Yeah.
I would, man, dude, there's so many things. That was one thing I was trying to figure out was, do you think it kind of feeds into the, like, does it kind of feed off of each other? People think that truck drivers cut corners, okay, and so they start to not like them, and then the truck drivers are like, well, these people don't like me, so why would I even spend time with them? And it just makes it even bigger and bigger. Yeah. And just both sides keep on feeding this whatever stigma against each other. And in the end, it's like, but you're both people. Like,
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, it happens. People are like, oh, that big dirty truck, it's in my way, so they're treating drivers this way.
Yeah.
Well, then drivers are sick and tired of being treated that way. So then they start reacting.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So I've been trying to change lanes for 3 miles. You can't tell me that, look, I am 13 and a half feet tall. I am 75 feet long.
Yeah.
I am a little over 10 and a half feet wide. And I got a minimal of 15, 20 lights on my truck that are blinking.
Yeah.
you can't tell me you don't see me.
Yeah.
Why are we invisible?
Yeah.
Literally. I used to tell my
biggest
students
cars
that all
on the road.
I used to tell my students that all the time. Like, look, you are invisible. Nobody can see you. When your blinking light comes on, it does not exist. Right? Anyway, all of that to say, I can turn that blinker on and try to change lanes. 2, 3, 4 miles. Ain't nobody gonna let me over. Ain't nobody gonna let me over. Ain't nobody gonna let me over. Eventually, the guy says, I've got to get over. So he starts kind of jerking that trailer over. Oh, look at that driver all over the road. Now you get off. So the driver got frustrated because nobody would be polite. So then he started being rude, which made the guy behind him start not liking truck drivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, exactly what you just said. It feeds it's like this vicious cycle. I'll say this, though, and me and Brandy were actually doing a little research on this several weeks ago for her Facebook page. And with all of that said, one of the things you hear about all the time is just drivers are cutting corners, they're unsafe, they're this. No, they're not. And statistically, that's a proven fact. I don't remember all of the numbers from when me and her were researching this for her thing, but I can kind of give you a general idea, right? On any given day, there's 3.5 million truck drivers on the road. Okay. On average, they're driving 600 miles a day. When we started breaking down the math, right, there was only, because I mean, you take the 3.5 million, multiply that by 600, that's how many miles are being driven on the road. Then you broke that down by the amount of accidents that involved a semi-truck. And it was like 1 accident per million miles driven. Yeah. That's an insane amount of miles. But then you copy in the fact that if the accident involved a semi and a regular vehicle, that 80% of the time, that accident was caused by the other vehicle. Which means that accidents that are actually caused by a semi-driver are only happening once out of every like 1.5, 1.7 million miles driven by a semi-truck. Like, that's an insane amount of safe driving that's going on, that the bad news gets all the coverage, right? There's a ton of drivers that are doing the right thing. There's a ton of accidents that aren't happening. The ones that do happen are bad. People get hurt. I'm not saying that, people shouldn't talk about and try to avoid those things, but I think that sometimes it gets talked about so much that you lose track of, we had 10 accidents in this state today, but how many millions of miles were driven in that state that day? You know? Especially if you look at I-80 here, 80, 70, and 40 being 3 of the busiest interstates in the country, they're going to have higher accident percentages. And so,
that's crazy. How have you and Brandy personally figured out the isolation thing, and with family? And because you're totally right, it makes perfect sense in my head of why some guy's on the road, he's on the road constantly, can't see his wife, can't see his kids, if he even has a wife or kids, right. And how have you guys managed that because I know I remember you were on the road by yourself for a while earlier this year, and then you and Brandy were just on the road together last time. So how does all that work?
As far as her being on the road, or as far as us just figuring out the both. Being alone thing? Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I answered your question. Yeah. As far as figuring it out, I guess I'll answer that first. By the grace of God, man. Honestly.
Do you think people can figure it out without
the grace of God?
Yeah.
No. Okay. And that's from having lived it. I'm telling you. I got saved July 9th, 2009.
Oh, okay.
whole nother story
Oh, yeah.
to that. Right. But I mean, I can tell you, they're without a beyond a shadow of a doubt. July the 9th, 2009.
Okay.
And my life before having found Christ, it was a stereotypical life, man. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And so, like, how do you figure it out? You have to have Christ in the gospel in your life. You just do.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you have to be very intentional.
Yeah.
And I think this is true of non-truck driving families too. And so I guess I'm going to talk about it more from a perspective of, like, since me and Brandy have been together, right? Like, because I was driving truck when me and her met, and it's like, she's got to figure out, like, okay, she's heard all the same stereotypes, you know, how many girlfriends does he have and how many different cities, and, you know, which, it's funny because you're never in one city long enough to even find a girlfriend, much less more, you know, so anyway, you know, like, maybe in the old days, but she's, you know, still having to wrestle with those stereotypes, and so it's one of those, like, intentionality became like a catchphrase for a long time. She used to make jokes to the kids and some of her family when we first got together that her job was talking to me on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, just because she wasn't working, she was taking care of the kids or whatever. Yeah. And so we might chat for half an hour, 45 minutes in the morning when she first got up, and then she'd get off the phone and handle some stuff with the kids. And an hour later, we're chatting again for half an hour, 40 minutes. And, you know, it's just kind of off and on like that all day long. Obviously, not everybody has the time in their schedule to be able to be on the phone 3, 4, 5, 6 hours out of the day. Like, I get that. But you can still be very intentional with your spouse about the fact that you are thinking about them. You know, that you do love them, that you are missing them. And that goes from both directions, right? Like, I think it helped her to get that phone call from me or a text message from me, whatever it was. Just like, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you. Like, it reminded her, I'm not out here looking at this or looking at her or looking for something else. Like, I'm thinking about you at home. Yeah. And then it helps that driver. Okay, I'm not forgotten. I'm not ignored. So that helped a lot, with just being intentional.
Staying connected intentionally.
And then not just, I would say, with your spouse, but like with other friends too. Like, that's the hard part in driving, is just reminding, because you get so, it's part of the reason I'm looking to get out of driving again now, is that it's almost, I don't even know if I really want to use this word or not, so I'm looking for a better word. But you almost become enslaved to the truck. Yeah. Like, literally. Like, the current situation that I'm in right now with my truck. If I choose to keep my truck, I could get it completely fixed and be financially secure and stable for at least a decent amount of time. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, I would have to run that truck at max capacity 6 to 7, 8 weeks at a time for the next year. Yeah. Which means that over the course of the next year, I'm going to be home maybe 6 or 7 times. Every one of those times is going to be for no more than 2 days. So over the next year, I'll be home for 14 days. Yeah. Like, I'm just not prepared to do that no more. Which brings up the other key point, right? Yeah. One of the things that me and Brandy started talking about, even if I was to keep driving truck, and this is before we started going into ministry, which was, I had to get past that point. When I was younger, in my mind, I was going to make all of the money that could be made. Yeah. That was the goal. Yeah. And so in order to make all of the money that could be made, you always push harder. You always drive further. You always take this chance. You always bend to that rule. Whereas, as I've matured, what's important to me has changed. Yep. Right? It's not about the money in my bank account. Yeah. And so what it's become is, I'm going to run until I get the money I have to have and then I'm going to shut my truck down, and I'm going home.
Go home.
And that's hard to do. You got to have a company that's willing to work with you, and you got to have, just personally, the character to say, okay, yes, I could have made $2,000 extra this week,
but I chose to.
I went home and spent that with my wife and kids.
Yeah.
And just have to be okay with that. So yeah, for us, I think that was really, what it was. It's like, just determine what's important to you and then go with it. How's it work with her on the truck?
Yeah, is that a different dynamic?
That's a completely different dynamic.
Why did is this the first time she's done it?
No. She's been on the truck with me before. This is the longest that she's ever done it. Yeah. She's been on the truck with me for a few weeks before. And it's actually great. I love having her on the truck.
Yeah.
For the most part. She definitely gets to see firsthand a lot of the things that she only ever hears about or that she imagines. Which is good and bad. Some things she realizes aren't as bad as she imagines them to be, and some things she realizes are worse than she heard they were. Because it's one thing to hear, I drove from the Florida-Georgia state line all the way to Kearney, Nebraska nonstop. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to hear that somebody did that.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be sitting in the truck while somebody's doing that.
Yeah.
And she's like, when are you going to shut down and go to bed?
He's like, when I get to Kearney.
Yeah. I'll see you in 2 days. You just run. And yeah, so that's definitely, and it's funny because she tells people all the time, and she's not kidding. The day that I call her and I tell her that I got a ticket for a logbook violation will be the biggest fight of our marriage. She has made no ifs, ands, or buts. She, and she knows, and she's right. I know what the laws are.
Yeah.
I know what I should run and what I shouldn't run.
Yep.
And if I choose to run over that, then not only am I doing something wrong, but I'm doing something stupid.
Yeah.
And when I get caught, not if, but when I get caught, she is not going to just be okay with the fact that I got caught because I was making a stupid choice to begin with. And so I will have the state to deal with as well as my wife.
And your wife.
Yeah.
Which statement you can maybe figure out. Good luck with explaining that one. Yeah,
you've met my wife, right? So. No. She's mad at me when she's in a good mood. No, I'm just kidding.
No. But, man, that's... And would you recommend that to... I don't know how big the truck driving, Christian community is, especially. But, would you recommend that a couple do that so that way to get just a perspective
for short periods of time? Absolutely. Because I'll tell you, I just made those jokes, right? And some of that's serious. She gets to see that stuff, right? There is some logistical stuff, every person's different, right? And so and I'm not sharing anything. I don't want to I'm not trying to overshare, right? Yeah. But some people's bladders are bigger than others, and some people...
I was literally going to ask you about that.
Some people are trained to go, I've got to drive 700 miles today, and so you pee when you stop.
Yep.
And other people are used to being able to go into the bathroom and go to the restroom whenever they need to.
That's when we go.
And so, it's literally a situation where I've either got to stop the truck 10 times a day, which... I don't have the time for, nor can we afford, or we buy a 5-gallon bucket and say, here. Put a lid on it and we'll clean it out later. Yeah. And we've done that. Not this time around, but we have done that in the past. I can't stop every little bit. We got to go.
I was literally going to ask because I'm I know my mom, she drinks a bunch of coffee and it's every hour we got to stop now. Stop.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Man, it was bad. The first few times that she went on the truck with me, it was just and she knew it. That was part of her concern for wanting to go. Yeah. And so literally that was our workaround for that because I can't stop. Even if it's a quick, just go to the bathroom and back out to the truck,
it's still...
You're losing 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Between getting off the highway, getting parked, getting in, getting going.
You get paid by mile?
Well, drivers all get paid different. So right now I'm paid percentagely.
Okay.
Or percentagely, that's a good word. By the percentage. But some drivers are paid by the mile.
Yeah.
Some get paid a percentage of the total freight, which is what I'm getting paid now.
Okay.
Some guys get paid by their weight.
Yeah.
Some guys get paid by the number of loads they haul in a week. You know.
Yeah. No matter what, if you're not
losing
driving,
money. Yeah,
you're losing money.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't matter which way. Yeah. However you're getting paid, the truck being parked's not part of that pay package.
Yep.
And then even if you really are trying to run as close to legal as you can, like I said, getting off of the interstate, pulled into a spot, run inside, run back to the truck, get back out onto the interstate, get up to speed, you've lost 15 to 20 minutes.
Yep.
Period. And so you add that up 5 or 6 times a day, that's over an hour. Well, let's just call that an hour at 70 miles an hour. That's 70 miles.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
One day. Now add that up over the course of the whole week, you're looking at 300 something miles.
Yep.
You know? And so, just couldn't do it. So, we did. We got a bucket.
Yep.
I even got her a little toilet seat for the bucket. Got some of that little Clorox bleach spray, and we lined the whole bucket out with it. And
this
then
is what you do?
2 or 3 times a day, I would dump it and rinse it out with a water hose and put
Keep
the lid
going.
back on it. And,
Wow.
I'm sure for her it was not the most comfortable thing. Of course, she grew up doing a lot of camping and stuff like that. And so
Dad tells you to go behind a tree. And
Exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't, she didn't, feel too awkward with it. But like at the same time, I will also say this, once again, not legal.
Yeah.
Because technically it's a hazardous material.
Oh, really?
And so,
Okay.
so now you have a hazardous on your truck. And so, and you don't have a bill of lading for it, and you don't have placards on your, so it's just like this whole weird, you know what? And that all started from somebody threw a bottle at an officer. I'm sure that's how that all started.
Yeah.
But, so there is that side of it, right? Okay. But on the other side, would I, absolutely I would.
Yeah.
And here's why. The time that me and her have got to spend, especially this last go around, because this last go around when she went out with me this summer, that was more of a personal, like it was great for us to be together, but I think for her, she needed to kind of hit the personal reset button on the last year. Because the move here was really rough.
Yeah.
Not just the move, but just the year since we've been here. It's just been so up and down for her emotionally that I think she needed just a little bit of a pause. And so that was good. But then the time that we have spent studying scripture together, instead of just like, hey, what are you reading? And this is what I'm reading. And then just having some surface level conversations over the phone. We've actually been able to have some, like, we went through Romans really in depth together for like 2 or 3 weeks. And that was a lot of fun, just being able to pray about things with us and looking at replanting and ministry. And we love Kearney, right? Yeah. But we knew that when we came to Kearney that it wasn't permanent.
Yeah.
And so just praying through, okay, Lord, like, what's this next season look like? What do we need to do to prepare for this next season? Things like that. Like just the time being able to spend with her has almost been, like, I wouldn't replace that for nothing.
Yeah.
It can get a little aggravating, and especially if there's, as a driver, you you just have a set way of doing things. You have a set place for everything. It's funny because my wife is very meticulous about her house. And right now it doesn't quite look that way.
Well, you can see signs of it for sure,
right.
though.
To me, this looks clean. Okay. Yeah. My wife thinks that this is horrible. Okay. But she hasn't been home. Right. Yeah. And so we're just going to leave it there. She hasn't been home. But the point is like, I guarantee you over the next 2 to 3 days, every little, I don't care if it's a book on the shelf, if it's not angled right, she will straighten it up.
This is very, just from my perspective, yes, there are a few letters on the ground and stuff, but there's just so much organization right now,
But here's the thing.
But if it's not your organization...
She's only like that at home.
Oh, okay.
And it's not that she's not like that somewhat on the truck, right? But the truck isn't her normal place. Like for me, I feel more normal on the truck than I do here at home.
Yeah.
I just do. And so I've got my entire truck set up in a way where basically there's nothing I can't reach from my driver's seat without having to turn my head. I can reach anything I need in my truck without even having to look for it because it's never been anywhere else. It's never going to be anywhere else. That's where it belongs. Until your wife lives on the truck with you, and then all of a sudden nothing is
nothing
where it belongs.
Remembered.
And when you ask her, well, where'd you put this? Well, it didn't make any sense being there, so I moved it over there.
It's like, but I always put it right there.
But I can't reach it over there. So there's been a lot of those. And it's funny because in some ways, she has helped the organization on the truck. But it's just one of those, like, you do have to learn, just like at home, right? You learn to compromise with each other. And there's been a lot of fun times. But I tell you, like, just having that sweet time. One thing that me and Brandy have never had, just because of how we met and with the kids and with me being on the road. And we have never, in the course of our entire relationship and marriage, had time where it was just me and her.
Really?
And so, yeah, the last couple of months have been some of the sweetest of our marriage.
That's awesome.
Honestly,
dude.
like, it really has. And just having that time really honestly has been invaluable. It's one of those things that we've both always wished that we had, and we just it's just okay, well, we get it, we both wish we had it, we both know we're not going to get it, like, just go on. But like,
so did was she the one who suggested coming along this time, or
she did actually? Well,
or was it kind of
so actually I think it was her suggestion, but I think it was based off of a joke that I made.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So our daughter, Trin, had moved back to Georgia. And so literally at that point, Brandy was in the house by herself. And it was the first time since Brandy was 16 that there's no kids to take care of.
Whoa.
And so she's like, okay. Well, at the same time, I just started going back on the road. And granted, when our relationship started, that was our normal. But over the last couple of years, she's gotten used to me being home now. And so all of a sudden, after COVID, and I got laid off, started driving again. So now she's at home for the first time, basically since her 16, with no kids. And I'm on the road. She's kind of sitting here by herself. And I think just the weight of the year was just really getting to her, and she's just like, you know what? And I just kind of just flippantly one day, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm going to be home next weekend. Pack a bag. Like, just go on the road with me for a couple of weeks. And she was like, yeah, whatever. And like, I think it was a week later, she was like, okay, so I put in my notice at Cabela's, and I was like, wait, what? And she was like, yeah, I'm going on the road. What? And I was like,
like, okay.
Okay, yeah. And we actually talked about it being a permanent deal. I don't think that was ever a real option.
Yeah.
But we talked about it, but one, just her comfort level. She doesn't like driving. She doesn't like being on the road.
I don't like being on the road for that long. That's just...
Traffic makes her very anxious.
Yeah.
And so does weather. Which is why, regardless of how things played out, she was coming home this weekend anyway, because she wanted to get some of the weather changing across the country in pictures, but she didn't want to catch any of the snow falling, And so I just kind of made a joke, and then she was just like, you know what, maybe that would be really good for me for a while. And like she said, she's actually the one that brought up, like, we've never just had time just to be together. And I know you're still going to be working, but we just hang out and talk and pray. And we sat out. Buddy of mine got married in Denver a few weeks ago, and we literally sat out in a parking lot at 11, 12 o'clock at night. Nobody else in the parking lot, just me and her, and turned on the radio and danced for like 30 minutes. It was like, just little things that, like, we've just never really got to do, and like, the wedding was pretty much over. Everybody was gone, and we had just got back to the hotel, and just like, I left the radio on the truck, and we just sat out there and danced. It was just like silly little things, but you know what? Like, it was cool to just be able to do them.
Dude,
and so
that's so cool. I have a real quick question before transitioning to one more thing. What are you currently like? I don't know how to describe this. Are you like self-employed then, or are you work for a company? Like, how does how does that aspect work?
So I lease my truck.
Okay.
From the company that I work for. So yes, I'm self-employed.
Okay.
On a 1099. As far as taxes and things like that are concerned. But because I'm purchasing the truck from this company, I couldn't necessarily take this truck and use it to haul any freight I wanted.
Okay.
I would have to haul, I can only haul the freight
that
they give me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense. So I feel like some of this trucking stuff, we're talking more about lifestyle, not necessarily like the technical aspects of it.
Right,
so, if you're interested, you the listener, if you are interested in the technical side of trucking, if all this crazy life sounds like something, go research it a little bit more on your own. Hopefully Ryan has given you some, some tidbits on kind of what some of that
I'll give you
logistics.
my email. I'll give you my email too. If somebody's got questions, man, shoot them over. I mean,
but
I'll go into details.
But realistically, I think we'll keep going on the current direction we're going with the conversation. So my question then is, where do you go from now? This is what I mean. This is your life right now that you're thinking about. You're very unfortunate circumstances as far as your truck breaking down.
I got a 35,000 pound paperweight right now.
Yeah, and now you're back home for a little bit. You gotta still figure this out. I mean, you've talked about ministry.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you this. I don't know what ministry you've done on the road. That might be an interesting thing to talk about.
We can talk about that too.
But maybe we'll do that real quick. We'll talk about what you've done in ministry on the road real quick, and then with all that experience, with all that life's happenings and stuff, trying to figure out what your relationship with your wife is and stuff.
Well, she married me.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, like,
I think that makes her my wife.
I meant like the dynamics of what your life together is going to look like. What do you think?
Well, as far as
that was like a million
road,
questions.
Yeah. It's good actually. Just you know what, and what I love about it too, I love to talk trucking.
Yeah,
I love to talk trucking. I don't even know if we've scratched the surface. So I could like literally do this for days. But as far as ministry on the road, it's touch and go. It's hard, right?
Okay.
Because it's definitely a huge heart that I have. And there's very few ministries that are actively pursuing the trucking community.
That's what I was
There's very few.
Yep.
And the few that there are, God bless them. I know that their intentions are well meant, but they're overworked. They're understaffed.
Yeah.
And some of them are just very poorly ran.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a condemnation of any particular individual. It's just the way it is, especially when like some of these places are completely 100% volunteer. And then when you throw in the fact that there's nobody really kind of leading it, it's just 100% volunteer effort. And then you throw in life with COVID and life with trucking community and no consistency. It's just, there's no consistency.
Yeah.
So a prime example of that, as far as consistency, is there are a couple of different ministries that have things like this, but they're called truck stop chapels. And some of them will meet in the truck stops. Some of them will have a refurbished semi-trailer that you meet in. And so they have them all over the country, different truck stops. In the last 5 or 6 months, I have seen one that had its doors open. One. Kind of hard to reach people with the gospel when your doors are never open.
If you're not open.
The 1 or 2 times that somebody, once again, was willing to work that courage up to take that step. Because sometimes I think for us in the Christian world, right? And depending, I guess this goes back to how you were raised. Like, were you raised in the church, not raised in the church? I don't know. But for me, right, I remember what it was like to walk into a church for the first time as an adult.
Yeah.
And honestly, the amount of anxiety and the shame and the guilt that I carried with that. And just like, it took me a while to build up enough courage to walk in that door.
Yeah.
And so, different scenario than what we were talking about earlier with the churches turning you away, but it's the same thing when the door's locked.
Yeah.
You know? And so anyway, I say all of that to say that just we need more. We need more people with a heart for Christ that are willing to go out and take the gospel to the truck driving community. And we need local churches, quite frankly, to step up and put in the work that it's going to take to do that.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
do you think does it have to come from truckers?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Does it help in some circumstances? Sure.
Okay.
You know, just like, and if this language is a little tough for people, I'm sorry, but I'm only calling myself what I was. Okay. Mm-hmm. Does it help if a drunk talks to a drunk? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it help if a junkie talks to a junkie? Yeah. So would it help if a trucker talked to a trucker? Yeah. But do you have to be?
No. Okay.
Right? You don't have to have been an addict to share the gospel with somebody who was an addict.
Exactly.
But there is a connection that those two people are going to share that somebody else won't. Doesn't make anyone less effective than the other. So the answer to that question is no. Doesn't have to be a trucker. But what it takes is somebody who just loves Jesus.
Exactly.
And is willing to have that awkward confrontation or that awkward conversation and just say, okay, it's going to be awkward and I'm going to do it anyway. You know, Mark Halleck, I love the dude, and probably too much, says, you know, lean into the awkward. And I'm sure he got that from somebody else, but he's the only one I heard say it. So one day I'll use it enough that I'll be like, I used to say.
Yeah.
Right? But no, I mean, seriously, that's what it's going to take. Going back to what I said earlier, right? Churches, when you got your signs in your parking lot that say no truckers allowed, and you're across the street from a truck stop.
Yeah.
But not once have you ever been across the street to that truck stop. Right?
Yeah.
You know? Now, granted, we could say the same thing about churches. When's the last time that the people at our church, you know, went and knocked on the doors of the apartment complex next door to the church?
Yeah.
You know, what is your church doing to love the community that they are in? Right? Because that's what's going to help grow your church. That's what's going to help make disciples. That's what's going to help share the gospel, right? You can't sit in the walls of your church. Will God bring the unsaved and the lost into your church randomly on any given Sunday? Sure, he can do that. It's not typically what's going to happen, right? We call them outreach programs to get the church out of the church.
Yeah.
Right? Go out. You know? I mean,
well, even just, you mentioned earlier that moment of, you know, walking out of the truck, being met halfway, saying, turn around. Can you imagine the difference of someone actively walking out, seeing you, meeting you halfway, and saying, come in.
Hey, glad
like,
you're here.
Yeah, exactly. And that single experience can completely change a person's life.
Absolutely. And you know what? I will say this. Let me defend churches briefly.
Okay.
and only slightly, quite frankly. But in some respects, drivers have done this to themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Some drivers, just like other people in society, right, are not very clean. They're not very, you know, so a truck's parked over here in this spot for 10, 12 hours, and the next thing you know, there's a pee bottle laying there, and there's a bag of trash laying there. People get sick and tired of seeing stuff like that. Well, okay, we'll just tell the truckers they can't stop here.
Yeah.
I get that, right? The other side of it, they can't really control as much as some people think they can, and that is, you know, I might have showed up to a church on more than one occasion, and I haven't had a shower in 3 days.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a place that I could shower for 3 days.
And when people don't understand that, you know, and I get it's a give and take both ways, but
And that's the thing. People say, well, yeah, you can. Every truck stop's got showers nowadays. You're right. Most truck stops do have showers nowadays. Yeah. Did I have the $12 to $15 to $20 in my pocket to pay for the shower if I didn't have free shower credits? Because that's how much they're charging.
They cost that much?
Yeah.
That's
the other thing is too is and most of the time I can get free showers. Listen, I can I there's ways for us to get free showers, absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's what happens, and that Brandy will tell you, we actually went almost a week without a shower recently because every place I stopped, their water wasn't working.
What?
Just between the schedule,
they just happened.
Between the schedule of what we had to run, and then okay, we can't get into this truck stop because it's full. Okay, we'll stop at this other one. Oh, their water's not working. Okay, well now I've just wasted an hour trying to figure this out. I've got to get back on the road, and just next thing you know, it's 4 or 5 days, and we haven't had a shower. Okay, the next truck stop, I don't care what happens, we're gonna stop and get a shower. You know what I mean? But you still have those things happen, and so it does. So with that said, I get it. Some of these guys stink. Some of them are dirty. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Mm-hmm. To me, right? It's worth suffering that little bit, right? Especially now, we're all wearing masks anyway. You can't smell it. The only thing you smell is your own breath. If it stinks, pop them in.
It's your own fault.
Yeah.
Well, and when you think about it, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, it's the sick.
There you go.
And so what a physical repretation of that fact. I'm not saying you can be a Christian and then be haven't had a shower in a few days. Right. But
my wife will tell you,
yes,
cleanliness is not okay.
Yeah, but to think about it, if you can't even love someone on the outside just because they stink, how in the world are you going to love them on the inside when their sinful heart is rotten?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If you can't take that 5 minutes of my smell, can you really take the 10 minutes of my story?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as far as just ministry and witnessing to guys, we have done quite a bit. Actually, we were blessed by somebody at the church that got us a case of these Bibles. Okay. Which is really kind of cool. Okay. They're just New Testaments. Yeah, you can take a look at it. They're just New Testaments. Yeah. But I say just New Testaments. Maybe, but it's kind of cool just with them having the truck on the cover. Yeah. Some truckers are just kind of
you already look.
A lot of times you try to hand a guy a Bible and they're like,
"What's this?"
They're like, "I don't really need it." All of a sudden now it's got a truck on the cover and they're like, "Oh, let me look at that." You know what I mean? So. That's been kind of cool having those. We try to just talk to drivers when we have the opportunity, whether it's sitting at a dock, getting loaded or unloaded, or sitting around the truck stop. If we can strike up a conversation with the driver, typically I'll start it off with just asking about them, just how they're doing. How's your day going? This, that, whatever. Hey, when's the last time you got to go home? And just kind of letting them brag on themselves a little bit and their family a little bit. And then trying to move that towards the gospel. Because it always turns in, well, what about you? What are you guys up to? And
exactly.
So then we'll go and try to move into a gospel-centered conversation from there. It's been really awesome. I've had the opportunity, even recently, two of the coolest stories, actually, that I've got from recent memory are in Virginia. Two completely separate related ones, right? But
hang on, can you pause that 1 second?
I'm going to pause.
Okay. For people, because you can't see, but Ryan handed me a New Testament Bible. On the front, it's got a truck, and is essentially more or less just a New Testament, but looks like some different things specifically targeted to truck divers, and a little bit of just kind of like a short summary of
at the front, like a short gospel presentation, and
so just a little something that's a little bit more relatable, I guess.
Yeah, and what we'll do, with the ones that I've been able to give out, is I'll write my phone number.
Oh, okay.
And my Facebook page in here.
Yeah.
And that way it's hey man, if you guys if you need to pray, if you need to talk, whatever, get a hold of me. If you got a question, get a hold of me. If they'll give me their number, then I'll take it. But typically a lot of times they're more comfortable with just taking mine. So yeah, we've handed several of these out. A lot of times it's just one-off conversations, and honestly, the biggest ones are dinner. So like about 2 months ago, I guess, roughly, we were in Raffine, Virginia, at a TA truck stop. Actually, it's a Petro truck stop, and it used to be called White's. Anyway, it's one of those old truck stops that have been around forever, and every trucker knows where it's at, you know. And we were eating dinner, and a guy come in, and happened to be a black man, and he came in and was kind of the only other driver sitting in the corner of the restaurant that we were in, and just, hey, how are you doing? And he looked at me funny. You talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody else.
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing? You know, and next thing you know, me, him, and Brandy are having this three-way conversation for the next half hour, 45 minutes about scripture, about his wife, about truck driving, but, and that's the thing, we do try to share the gospel as much as possible, but here's the challenge. In a quote-unquote normal church setting, right, I can have as many conversations with Kurt as I want to have, and as Kurt and I make time for over the course of several weeks, right? We can get to know each other slowly over time, and then if there's something serious we want to discuss with each other, we can kind of build into that. Trying to witness and evangelize from the truck driving community, you don't have that. This is the only time in my life I'm probably going to see this guy. It's a one-off.
Yep.
You know? And so it's almost, it's like, did you ever play baseball?
Why'd you have to ask the question? I played baseball.
Kurt's like, I asked the questions here, sir.
One year, my team was super good. We were undefeated. We lost the championship, so there's trauma there.
Well, you're not undefeated if you
not
lost the championship.
not undefeated anymore.
Oh, okay.
And I was super garbage at baseball. I hit the ball one time. Okay. I didn't even hit foul balls. I just hit the ball one time.
Okay.
And I was, you know, when you're younger, if you're in the outfield, you know, when you get to pros, outfield is really important. When you're younger, outfield is
right. Go pick some flowers.
Go pick some grass. Yeah, that was me.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, you hit the ball one more time than I could. Okay. I was not a baseball player at all. Matter of fact, I started like wrestling and things like that so that I didn't have to play baseball. So no, I was not a baseball player, but I use the analogy from baseball.
Okay.
So Spencer will be disappointed in us both, by the way. But you know, you're standing up there at the bat, right? And like some players, they know, oh, I'm going to get plenty at bats.
Yeah.
And so it's just a nice, easy swing. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah.
Right? Not me.
You know, you get one shot at it.
Right, and that's kind of presenting the gospel, right? Like it's just a nice, easy. Let me get to know you. Let me love you. Let me show you the gospel more than tell you the gospel, because you know I can love you, and now once you know that I love you, you'll trust me, and we can. Have this.
Exactly.
It's great, great way to go about it. But I don't have that time.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I'm standing up there with like my Louisville Slugger, and like I'm just swinging for the fences with every swing, right? And it's like sometimes that works. And sometimes you swing the bat so hard that you spin around backwards and you fall on your legs. You know, it's just like, whoa, wow, what just happened? I don't know.
Have you had many people after having those conversations? I mean, obviously, I think those people having those conversations, the fact that you acknowledge them, that's one huge step. But like, have you ever had follow up with people and stuff? Or
so some follow up, but not a lot. And that's what I was going to say. Those one offs to me. And the success of those conversations will never really be known, and here's why. I've had a couple of that, like, well, yeah, you know, can we just pray right now? And okay, but that's also very, to me, almost like, is there a conversion there? Is God really touching their heart? Is their life changing? There's no way for me to know. So there's been very little for me to say that I've seen a lot of fruit off of that. Like, all I'm doing really in my mind there is just planting seeds and planting seeds and planting seeds.
Exactly.
And maybe watering a seed that's already been planted, and what the Lord is doing with those conversations and those people, I'll never know.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to be faithful in continuing that. Now, what you said about just acknowledging them and having the conversation is huge, because once again, going back to this gentleman we were just talking about in Raffine, Virginia, Brandy and I are sitting there having this conversation with the guy. He actually acknowledges several times, and I'm sure your listeners are aware of all the nonsense that has been going on in our country.
Yeah, it's been wild.
And so he actually brings it up. I'm sorry if I acted strange when you guys said hello. I just couldn't believe you said hello to me.
Huh.
And it was just like, wow.
That guy had felt so...
Right. Like, he wasn't going to speak to us because we were white, and he didn't expect that we would speak to him because he was black.
Wow.
And that was just the expectation.
Well, as a truck driver on top of all that, being isolated. And
right.
That's...
And so we actually ended up having more conversation along those lines. Mm-hmm. We did, the three of us. Brandy and I just decided, and this is actually, I've done this a lot, we ended up paying for the guy's meal. And then what we do when we do that, instead of just having it on one bill, I'll still have them do two separate bills. Mm-hmm. But we'll write on the back of their check. And I'll just write them a little note just telling them how much I appreciate the conversation. Mm-hmm. I'll give them maybe a couple verses of scripture. I'll give them my phone number, my email, that type of stuff. And it's still very similar to the one-off conversations. I've had a few people contact me for some prayer requests over the years through that. But I'll tell you how much I feel like it going back to planting and watering those seeds.
Yeah.
Brandy and I left the truck stop after paying for his meal. He didn't even know we had paid for it yet. He was still eating when we left. Mm-hmm. And through a conversation with another driver, we got held up on the outside of the truck stop. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting there, we're talking, and the next thing you know, this man walked out. And when he came out, he started to walk by us, and he realized that it was us. Mm-hmm. And he stopped, and I'm telling you, the man had tears in his eyes.
What?
And he literally, he was like a little kid come running up to me, just wrapped his arms around me, and, man, thank you so much. And, you strengthened my faith today, and I'm not saying all of this to make myself sound good. It wasn't me.
Yeah. It
wasn't Brandy. Yeah. It was literally just God's love working through us, and this man actually feeling like somebody cared about him. And what a testimony it was. He's sitting there giving me just this huge hug.
Yeah.
And he's crying. He ends up giving Brandy a hug by the end of it, and we prayed together. But there's other drivers.
Yeah, there are other people around you.
In and out of the truck stop. And so here, just to give you the picture, I mean, I've already, big black guy. And when I say black, I mean like, or big, rather. I mean, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm serious. Like, I'm 6'1".
Yeah.
And this guy had to be 6'6".
He's
he's
giant.
Just, I'm having to look up, He's just got his arm. He's bald, got his arms wrapped around me. Here I am, bald guy, cowboy hat, beard, So like, visibly, we could not be two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're just wrapped in this embrace, and he's crying, and Brandy's crying, and I'm almost crying, and all these other drivers are walking by us.
Like, what the heck is going on over there?
What is going on? But then we start talking about the Lord, and we start talking about the gospel, and we're holding hands, and we're praying. Yeah. And so not only was it so encouraging to see him be strengthened, but we got encouraged, we got strengthened, and then how many seeds were planted in the hearts and the minds of every other driver walking back and forth into that truck stop. You know, so it's little things like that where, we'll probably never see the results.
Yeah.
But I just trust God that they're going to be there.
That's so cool, dude. Like, and it's, I know for a lot of people, it's really hard in ministry, especially young people. They feel like they have to see, like, from start to finish. Yeah. They'll be like, yeah, I've been talking with my friend for years now, and finally they became a Christian. And that's awesome if you're there for the whole walk. But realistically, life, like, you don't get those opportunities all the time. A lot of times it's, hey, I was that one step, and not just me, right?
Right.
I was just one person among many that finally led them there. And you know what? In the end, it's not you, it's not any of these people. It's God working through all these people to get them to where He wants them to be.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Kurt, but isn't that what Scripture tells us?
Exactly.
Right? Didn't Paul say, I watered, I planted, and Apollos watered?
Yeah.
You know?
So you don't know,
like, that's
in the moment what you might
structure
do.
we're given. Yeah. Now, I will say this. When you are able to share more in depth and build that relationship, because here's the thing. I may be planting and watering seeds with these drivers, right? But I'm not discipling them.
Exactly.
That's a whole separate issue, which is what we were called to do, right?
Yeah.
We weren't called to go and make converts.
Yep.
We were called to go and make disciples, right? And so I do think that that's important, which is where the other big thing that I've gotten to do while being on the road was when I was training.
Okay.
Because what'll happen is these guys go to a school. Okay, they go through a school for 4 to 6 weeks, and they learn how to pass a test in an empty truck with no load. Right? We're probably running out of time, huh?
No, we're good.
Okay.
I had to stop and interrupt. I'm not interrupting you. I've been texting people just to make sure.
No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure.
I still have time.
Okay.
We can keep
but
going.
these guys are spending 4 to 6 weeks at a truck driving school and learning how to pass the test.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. They've never driven a loaded truck. And then they still got to learn all the company policies, this, that, whatever. So anyway, they end up typically getting put with a trainer, mentor, whatever they want to be called. And they'll live on the truck with this guy from anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. And those have been some of the coolest stories.
Yeah.
Because I'm very open about my faith. I talk a lot about my faith. And I've had some conversations with guys that absolutely were not open to any religious conversation. I've had Muslims on my truck that were very antagonistic to my faith. I've had Buddhists who didn't care about my faith. I've had atheists who thought that I was insane.
Yeah.
And I've had guys that honestly didn't know what to think. I literally just all the way around, you know. And over the course of years, right, you live in it, because here's the thing. It's a semi-truck.
Yep.
You know, our entire living space is probably smaller than the size of my bathroom. Like, you know, I mean, and you're in that space for 20 to 22 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6-7 weeks, or 4 to 6 weeks rather. And so, I mean, it's, you talk because there's nothing else, you know what I mean? And so there's been multiple occasions where I was able to lead another driver to faith, and then actually get to communicate and talk to them and build that relationship over the years. There's a couple of people that pop up in my mind very specifically, that, you know, some of which Brandy has even got the opportunity to know.
Yeah.
And so
that's awesome.
Being able to be a part of those stories. I've had guys, man. I had a guy on my truck one time that had been homeless for 6 years. And the county where he lived paid for him to go to truck driving school so that they could get him off the streets, because he could just live in his truck and he wouldn't have to live anywhere. You know, he wouldn't have to worry about not having somewhere to live. And so he's on my truck now, and we're running the country for, 6 weeks, and just getting to know him and just seeing like the hope in his eyes. Like when we went inside the first restaurant and we sat down to have a meal, and typically I wouldn't buy all of my students' meals, but I would buy, and it was like, hey, I got your dinner or whatever, and I ordered 2 buffets.
He just lit up.
He was just like, he's like, we're eating the buffet? Now some of y'all have not seen me. I understand. I'm a big man, okay? I am slowly working on getting smaller, but buffets are my normal, okay? Yeah. This guy, you could just tell. He was just like, just something as small as just buying him a meal, Yeah. But then getting to witness to him, share the love of Christ with him, fast forward, okay, this dude owns his own truck, owns his own house, he's married, he's got 2 kids, you know what I mean? And just knowing that I got to be used by God in even a small way in this guy's story, you know. When he's standing at the church talking to some guy about, well, how'd you get saved? You know, he's talking about, well, I was on the road with my trainer and he opened up his Bible and started reading Ephesians 2. You know, and just asked me what my thoughts were. You know, so just being able to be a part of that, I think has been, and that's actually been the stronger areas when I have been able to build those relationships and kind of work on more of a discipling. You're right; those are the exciting ones, right?
Yeah.
Plenty of rejection, plenty of everything else, but you know you're going to get that. You know, so.
Yeah. Man.
I don't remember what else you asked.
I don't even know what else I said. No, dude, it's so cool. It's so cool to see everything. Like I think it's just, it's such a foreign lifestyle to a lot of people. Like who are just like, yeah, just I go to work, I go to class, I go to.
Yeah.
Well, have you been on a truck for?
It's funny.
Hours and hours and hours.
It's funny because I told Brandy you had asked me to do this, and she's like, "So, what does he want to know?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not sure." I said, I think he said he just wanted to talk about life on the road." And so she kind of looked at me funny, and she's like, "So, what are you going to tell him?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I don't know if he wants like the cute little company answers, or if he wants like, this is what it's really like." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, Kurt, this is what it's like.
Yep.
I wake up, I pee in a bottle. 5 minutes later, I'm driving. Then I stop somewhere. I wash my face. I pee. And then I drive.
And then you drive.
Then I get unloaded. Then I drive. And I get reloaded. Then I drive. And I go to sleep. Then I wake up. And I pee in a bottle.
And you do it all again and again. And so, but and all those things. That's
it's very monotonous.
That's the lifestyle. Monotonous. But it's also super unique in all the opportunities it provides because you are on the road, and like you said, I mean, depending on your life situation, like you can be calling your buddies while you're on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of crazy stuff and opportunities that
I've got 5 buddies of mine that sit on a conference call.
Yeah.
Literally 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
There's 5 guys sitting on this conference call all day long, and that's all they're doing is cracking jokes, pretty much all day. Yeah.
It's one of those weird situations where, like, because a lot of times at work, you gotta be like, focus. Yeah. And obviously you're focused on the road and stuff, but it's okay to be talking with people because you can multitask. Yeah. You can do other things. So
yeah, I can't tell you how much of my study just theologically has happened behind the wheel.
Do you listen to a lot of
of audiobooks, a lot of sermons? Okay. Yeah. I've been just recently I've listened to 2 volumes of church history.
Wow.
And about a third of a new systematic theology book that I've got.
Yeah.
And that I mean I don't even listen to music anymore. Like
really?
And I love music, don't get me wrong, but it's just gotten to the point, I mean, I'll throw on a sermon, I'll throw on a book, I'll throw on a...
I mean, when you think about it, perspective is everything, right?
Yeah.
You could be like, I get paid to drive around a truck all day. Or you could say, I get paid to listen to theology all day.
Right, exactly, yeah. And you know what? That was an intentional move on my part. It started when I started seminary, I needed to figure out how to study more. Because I'm driving 10 hours and then I got to do some writing and this and that. Man, I got this test tomorrow and I haven't studied for it and I got to go to bed.
Yep.
So it was like, wait, let me start recording my books onto my iPhone and then I'll listen to them while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started. And then just after not being able to continue at seminary and this and that, it's just, So John Frame Systematic Church History, John Calvin. I've been listening to the Institutes by John Calvin. And what it was an intentional, and once again that word intentionality, right?
Yeah.
How do I redeem this time?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, am I going to use? Because I'm going to listen to something.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not gonna just sit here in silence for 10, 12, 14 hours.
That would go great.
And so am I gonna listen to sports radio, which I used to do all the time.
Yeah.
To the point where I could tell you the name of every player and their salary and this team setup and that team set. Okay, well wait. Can you tell me that much about the Word of God?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it was an intentional step to try to redeem that time.
Okay.
You know. So anyway, yeah.
I really, I'm glad you're doing that. Like, because I think that is something like, I'm trying to get my words right in my head. I think a lot of people just kind of live life. They just kind of like do the next thing. There's, you know, whatever, like, oh, I guess I got this going on today and things like that. Right. And when you take a moment to just stop and be like, what could I be doing differently? What can I be doing different to grow in Christ, to grow as an individual? Yeah. And it's one thing to, you know, completely flip that spectrum to like every single moment of my life needs to be planned to do this, and this, and then you forget about
micromanage.
Yeah, the people around you and just having some freedom to be there for others. But finding a really good balance of I'm going to listen to this just, you know, while I'm doing the dishes or something, because it's an opportunity to grow. And then, you know, after that, I'm going to go hang out with my friends so that way I can, you know, be with them and help them grow or just connect and build trust and things like that. Like, there's just so many parts of life that if you just kind of rework your mind around it, you can do a lot of awesome things. So.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I learned a lot of that I've learned from my wife, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. She's very intentional. For the most part, she's very intentional about how she spends her time. Mm-hmm. She is not very idle. She is not one. She's not going to wake up and just sit around and then maybe get her day going a couple of hours later. Like she hits the ground running, you know. And it's always, for the most part, it's always very focused. Like, hey, let me work on this, let me work on that, and she gets so much more in life accomplished than I do because like I didn't have that structure. And so, yeah, I guess maybe just learning from her. But I would agree with that.
Okay. 2 more things I'm thinking about. One of them is pretty quick, and the other one was just kind of a conclusion type thing.
Okay.
We've been going for pretty decent chunk. You're not at the record yet though for the longest.
Oh,
so.
I can be.
Yeah, you said earlier you could go for days.
Are you giving me carte blanche here? Because I mean,
you do have the record.
I actually remembered one of the questions you asked earlier that I haven't answered yet. No, go ahead.
Wait, what? Okay. I don't even remember.
I do though. I do.
Okay, well maybe
you'll know when you listen later.
You do have the record for being you're the oldest guy I've had on here before. Oh, so congratulations on being the top of
the elder statesman.
Yeah, Ryan has spoken. Okay, hang on. I need to text someone real quick. I'm sorry. I'm trying to manage other things while doing this.
Sure. Okay.
Normally I would not do this, but they're time sensitive things. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm being a terrible conversation.
How dare you handle things. Do you ever notice that I'm not going to give a number, but let's just say the vast majority of miracles and things that were performed by Jesus in the Gospels were done in the process of him being interrupted?
Really? I'm trying to think about that now.
On the way to...
Oh yeah.
So,
he was going as he was preaching those kind of things, you know.
Yeah.
Huh.
How much margin he had built into his schedule because I'm going to be present in the moment.
Yeah.
You need me right now, so let me pause what I'm doing to handle what you need, and then get back to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know. But do it, and then, you know, like the most gracious. Like it's not like he didn't get to those places that he was going to or accomplish those things he was going to accomplish. He just... Mm-hmm. I'm sure this will be one of those few segments that are deleted out. Unless we're going to post it with several seconds of dead air silence.
Just put some elevator music down here. Okay.
Oh, see, look.
Yeah. Sorry.
I should have sang 99 Bottles of Beer.
Oh, he would have only gotten to probably like 96. Anyway. So, oh shoot! Now I have to remember what my questions were. I know what one of them is.
Oh, okay.
And you apparently know what one of them is. I don't remember which one it is. Okay, I know it. So, this is from earlier.
Okay.
When I said we were going to talk about where you're going to go forward.
Yeah.
That's the one you're thinking about? Okay. I have a little fun thing we'll do right at the end, but I just wanted this to be basically the wrap up.
Sure.
Where are you going, man?
You know, it's a very interesting question and a very interesting time for you to ask it.
I know. I was like, even when I heard that your truck had broke down for a while, I was like, oh crap, does he not want to like even record right now? Like,
no, because honestly, what makes your question interesting is actually several weeks before the truck broke down.
Okay.
Honestly, yeah. So, my calling, Brandy's calling, our heart and desire in ministry is to replant churches.
Okay.
Which, for those who don't know, in essence, and it's a little bit more detailed than this, but just basically, right, we're going to go into a dying church, and help with the power of God and the gospel and the word of God, love that church back to health. It's a beautiful picture of the resurrection to me. It's a beautiful testimony to a community who has slowly watched this church decline and die over time, to suddenly spring back to life, and just to see the power of God coming from there.
Which has happened to Calvary.
Exactly.
Englewood.
Exactly. And that's Calvary Englewood is now, I think we're up around 28 or 29 plants and replants for a church that 11 years ago was within weeks of closing its doors. I mean, it's
we'll crazy. Talk about that more.
Definitely. But I'm just saying, exactly right, though. And so that is our heart. We came to Kearney, like I said earlier, knowing that it was a temporary place, but so that I could get more experience, grow in my leadership, get some more hands-on experience through Spencer and things like that with some church stuff. And so Brandy and I have actually really been talking and praying about where's God leading us to replant? When is He leading us to replant? And kind of evaluating right now how prepared we feel, or even others may feel that we are, to kind of start that process.
You know, it's a tough thing to do.
It is a tough thing. Most people will tell you that it's harder than church planting.
Yeah.
Well,
and you know why? It's probably, I mean, this is just me.
Sure.
Speculating, but I'm assuming it's because those dying churches have had, pastors come in for a few months at a time and then move on, and then and then maybe it's just a few older folk, or maybe
you're hitting
who
all
are like
rails. Yeah.
Like, I don't trust these new guys who come in and
I mean, they're all of those and a lot of other reasons, and sin, and so I mean, but long story. Or back, I don't know how to say that, but that is our hope. That is our goal.
That's your goal.
And so we have been praying about how do we focus our lives in a way that is more intentionally preparing us specifically for that. And so that's what we're praying about right now. We've actually had a couple of places that or at least a place rather, that we've actually been praying about and thinking about. No time frame, no anything. Us getting back in a truck after moving to Kearney was completely situational. I got laid off because of COVID.
Yep.
Kind of waited around, needed a job, got back in a truck. But we always knew that me being out of a truck was what really needed to happen in order for me to finish preparing and going into full-time ministry. And so we've kind of been dreaming, what does that look like, and how do I work my way out of this company to be home more? And fast forward 2 weeks, the truck blows up. So it was literally our prayer all along has been, Lord, show us kind of, what you want for us to do here. Do we stay in the truck? Do we get out of the truck? Truck quit.
Yeah.
So staying in the truck is really kind of we could do it, but it would be silly for us to stay in this truck at this point. So,
Okay.
Not sure what all the details look like as far as new job. I've still got to go back to Indiana to pick this truck up once it's repaired and then bring it back home. So there's still a little bit of transition that's about to happen. But right now, it's really just a preparation and prayer phase of, I still don't expect that it's going to be any less than 6 months to a year. It could be 2 years before we ever find the right place for us to go and replant, because there's just a lot of moving pieces with that.
Yeah.
But just preparing for and planning for that, just trying to grow, just grow in my own, personal walk with the Lord, strengthen our marriage, and try to grow some leadership qualities, because I wouldn't say that I have many of those right now. Not that I don't know what they are, but just as far as,
it's different to know the right answers versus having lived them out, and
right.
Not saying you're not, living out what it means to be a leader, but not being in
not
kind
being
of position
at church week in and week out. Like that's a big thing. Like it's easy to talk about. It's easy to know. Okay, well, this is what needs to happen.
But then
versus actually being able to do it. Yeah.
So maybe it's literally just being back in Kearney.
For right now, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean,
growing at Calvary and getting ready.
For now, that's exactly what it is. Like our ultimate goal, is to replant.
Yep.
And that's what but we don't know where that's going to be. And so for right now, literally the exact words that I said to Brenda yesterday when we were talking about this is right now, the wisest thing and the most faithful thing that we can do is be here in Kearney, love the people here in Kearney as well as we can love them, serve the people here in Kearney as best as we can serve them, and continue to grow closer to the Lord as we walk through that. And anything else that's going to happen is going to happen later. So we'll figure it out.
That's crazy. It's awesome, though.
Yeah.
It's like crazy awesome.
So if anybody needs a local truck driver.
Yeah, Ryan's going to be.
And,
Need a U-Haul?
Yeah.
Someone to drive that. I don't know.
Matter of fact, if you're hiring for almost anything, hit me up. I'll send you my resume. So.
There you go. Do you have any idea where you think you'll go? None. Just wherever it
I have not really looked deeply because I need to still go to Indiana and get this job. I don't have a solid start date for a new job yet.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff kind of popped up over the last few days. So no. But I have looked. There is a local fuel company that's hiring that might be an option. I thought about going to the youth center and working there. I thought about Swans, because one of the guys from the church works at Swans, and thought maybe I could get it in there.
Who knows?
I literally, I don't have a clue.
All right. Well, you know what?
Gotta do it.
You're being faithful. That's what matters. So
That's it.
Let's go from there. All right. I'm going to challenge you.
Challenge.
30 seconds. Give me your wildest story.
Oh, that's easy. That's easy.
Okay.
So, got a student. It's his last run.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to haul air freight. So we'd go into FedEx, UPS, things like that at airports. So anyway, we're on our way up to New Jersey. It's his last load. He's going to deliver this load in Jersey. We're going to drive back to Memphis. He gets off the truck. I took 30 seconds, man. I said, hey, bro, wake me up before you get to the airport. Oh, no, I can do it. No, listen, I know how the highway gets spidery in there. If you're not in the right lane, you're going to get lost. Trust me, wake me up. Okay. I go to bed. I wake up to, Ryan! Whoa. I jump up out of bed, throw open my curtains. I mean, I'm nothing but my boxers, right?
Yeah.
And I am surrounded.
Oh, no.
By New Jersey State Police. Shotguns leveled.
What?
Yes, sir. At which point I looked at him and I said, what did you do? I beep up. I get that you beeped up. Could you please tell me what just happened? I don't know. He will not answer me, at which point a state trooper points to me and points to the ground. Oh, Lord, here we go. And I actually went to grab my pants, at which point he hollered, I said, get out of the truck. Okay, well, we're climbing out of our truck now. I climbed out of the truck. What are you guys doing? Sir, you seen me just get out of bed. Like, I don't know. Do you know where the heck you are at? And I'm looking around. No, sir, I do not. Where are you trying to go? He's supposed to be going to FedEx, sir. do you know how to get there? And at that point's when I'm starting to realize I am standing in the passenger loading zone of Newark, New Jersey Airport. You can see the interstate behind you. At which point I said to the officer, yes, sir, I do know how to get there. From the interstate. I don't know how he got here. He cusses me up one side, down the other, walks me back to the truck, opens the driver's side door, looks at the student, he says, if I see him driving in this state, I'm taking you both to jail.
No.
Puts me in the driver's seat. Literally, they have to back traffic up onto the interstate because it all narrows down to one lane.
Yeah.
And everybody stopped because they stopped the semi. So they have to back traffic up in order to back the semi up to turn the semi around because there's no clearance for it to go straight.
Yeah.
Give us a police escort to the FedEx facility at Newark, New Jersey Airport. Do you know why they were so antsy? My student, I should clarify as well, was from southern Louisiana. Big boy. Had a beard probably about halfway down his chest. Pretty dark skinned. Looked possibly Arab. Don't mean that to be racist whatsoever. But
Just
it plays into the story.
stereotypical-
It plays into the story because of the stereotypes and what happened at Newark, New Jersey Airport.
Yeah.
That is where the planes from 9/11 were hijacked on. And so here he is with the 53-foot explosive trailer, because it's got explosives written right on the side of it,
Yeah.
in the passenger loading zone of the airport.
Oh, no.
I'm surprised we did not get shot that day. But, yeah. Crazy story.
I knew there was no way you get that in 30 seconds. I'm
Nah,
glad you
yeah,
did it.
sorry,
That's
bro.
all right. Dude, that would be the weirdest wake up I'd ever have. Like, be like, what the heck? There's a dude with a shotgun. What's going on? I told you to wake me.
Yeah. I've also been woke up and told that the mothership was above us.
What?
Yeah. I had a student wake me up. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do I see what? The mothership. And I mean, dude, he's shaking like this. I mean, like he could not have held a cup of coffee in his hand. And what it was is it was the red lights on the windmills that were blinking. And this dude thought it was a UFO. And at first I was mad because I thought he was messing with me.
Yeah.
And he was like, but then you seen how much the dude was shaking and lost all the color in his face. Like, that dude was serious. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
That's crazy. Whew.
I love you, man.
Yeah. I love you too, Ryan. Thank you so much for doing this.
The next time we get together, you got to talk more about you.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
All right, well,
I'm serious. Like, you got to come over for dinner.
Okay.
Just hang out and talk about Ben. I mean, Kurt.
Yeah. No, I would love to.
Yeah.
This has been great for me to get to know you and all your crazy, awesome life. But yeah, no, I'd love to come over for supper sometime.
Yeah, man.
It'd be a lot of fun. Well, you got anything else, or is that it? You good?
How much longer before I hit the record?
Yeah, at least another 40 minutes.
No, we're good.
We're good. No, okay.
Wait, you got a bottle?
No, I'm
Okay.
I'm not.
Nobody will get that.
No. Anyway,
You can delete that later if you want.
it's okay. You do it. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna be it. Thank you so much, and
thank you, bro.
there's Ryan and I might go eat a chip. I don't know for sure. We'll find out.
Oh yeah.
But that's another story. So
Packy.
I'll catch you guys later. Man, that was a lot of fun. Ryan just cracks me up so much. I hope you guys appreciated that episode. I know I really appreciated it. It was just really cool to get a glimpse into someone else's lifestyle that's very foreign to my own. And there's just something about learning about how people live
differently from me that I find very intriguing and helpful, and learning how to connect better with others and be more empathetic and learn a lot of like really cool things and also like the hard things too. So it was just a really good conversation with Ryan. And so yeah, I hope you guys liked it. Couple quick notes at the end as per usual. I really screwed up the mic level on this one. I know it's something that's pretty easy to correct, but I just hadn't recorded in person for a while, and so I was used to being able to adjust stuff on separate audio tracks. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an issue. I tried to fix a lot of it so it wasn't constantly blowing out your ears and stuff. But that and bumping the table, I still got to work on that, or find a way to elevate my mic. As was pretty evident. Ryan and I were both struggling with our math, and so any of those numbers that he gave in regards to I think it was at some point he talked about truck driving accidents or something, and I think the number he gave was actually, if his numbers were correct, and I think there are even fewer truck accidents per certain miles driven, where the trucker was liable, if my math is right. But like I said, you know what, in the end, just go research that yourself. It's not even a super important thing, but I try and keep I don't want to misinform people either. So that's going to do it though for today. Next time, I actually do know what's coming next time. I recorded another episode with some high school friends. I actually recorded it over Zoom, and so you'll be able to, if you watch it on YouTube, see some of our faces and expressions and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that one's a little bit kind of just a goofy one, talking about friendship. There's still some good stuff in it too, but it was kind of my experiment episode with Zoom. So if anything, go watch it and just watch Toby the whole time, because he's just dancing around half the time in the background. Anyway, that's going to do it for today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. See ya.